Okay, welcome to council meeting. Thank you, everybody, for being here. June 21st, 2022. We'll get started with our first item on the agenda, the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know who was on the pledge. Was it you?
Yes.
Do a good pledge for us.
Okay.
We'll wait for a second and let some royalty enter the room, and then we'll do the pledge. How about that?
Would the audience please arise and repeat the pledge after me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated.
Thank you, Councilman Gordon. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you for our royalty being here tonight. That is our next item on the agenda, the inspirational prayer and message by our own Miss Spanish Fork, Grace Ahinger. I said that right?
Yes, good job. I'm very proud of you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. So, I thought I would share this. Love cannot remain by itself. It has no meaning. Love has to be put into action, and that action is service. This quote by Mother Teresa embodies something that I am very passionate about. My social impact initiative is called Love is an Action Word. Love isn't something you just say, but something you do. As your Miss Spanish Fork 2022, it'll be my honor to put the love I have for this community into action. And speaking of love, action, and service, there's actually a young man named Daxton in our community that is competing in a one-armed challenge. If he wins, he receives a trip to Hawaii and he gets to meet Bethany Hamilton. So you can visit the Miss Spanish Fork Instagram page to find details on how to vote today. And we have just 4 hours left to vote. So we really want to get that for him. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, we are so grateful that we have been able to gather here today. We thank thee for the beautiful community in which we live and for the nation that we have. We ask that this meeting will be led by thy Spirit and that when the time comes, we may have a good rest of our evening. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Miss Spanish Fork. And yes, 4 hours left, so go to the Instagram page of Spanish Fork, Miss Spanish Fork, and vote for that great cause. 4 hours left. That the millions that are watching, that could put us over the top. So that's what Mayor Leifson always said. So go on and vote. Okay, this takes us to item C. This is a sad one, but but maybe not sad for him. Chris Child and retirement. Jared, you're taking this on?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Chris, I'd like Chris to come up.
Yeah, Chris, come on up.
Slideshow kind of put together. So Chris Thompson wanted to be here, but he couldn't be here tonight. So he asked me to come and recognize Chris Childs for 35 years of service at the airport.
That's awesome.
Be having technical difficulties over there.
Sorry, what am I pulling up? I was trying to pull something else up.
Yeah, we're in the meeting.
What do you need, Jared?
There's a.
Oh, I got it here.
Okay, so this is, Chris Childs, 35 years of service at the airport. He's been on a board member, the airport manager since 2007. And since 2017, when we actually took over the airport of Spanish Fork City, he's been an employee of the airport. If you can go to the next. Some of the things that he's done is Wings and Wheels, formerly Airplanes, Trains, and Automobiles, the EA Young Eagles program, and then began work on the Gail Halverson Education Center. Some of the other highlights that he's done is the airport master plan. I remember working on that with you. The extension of the runway, I was working with him on actually all three of them, resurfacing of the runway, the taxiway Bravo, and then we removed the ditches at the airport. Here's a airplane crash, so we've been working on that for the last couple of years.
You talk about accomplishments and then show a crashed airplane.
Well,
That's removing the stuff from
removing the
open
ditches so we don't have.
So we don't have that anymore. Got you. Okay.
There's numerous hangars that have been built.
Recognitions.
And then the Gail Halverson building. Gail Halverson died on February 6th, but he at the age of 101 years old. His memory will live through the Gail Halverson Aviation Education Foundation. On May 21st, the Halverson Service Center was commemorated at the Spanish Fork Municipal Airport with a variety of activities and aircrafts. So that'll live on, and Chris was a very, very big part of that. During his time, he's had 8 different part-time interns and airport operator specialists work for him. David Bradford, McLean, is that right? Clements, Christian Davis, Bryce Gentile, Elias
Lyson,
Nelson,
Yeah.
Eden Tucker, Grant Thorne, and Truman Nelson. So, I don't know if you have anything else to
Yeah,
add to that.
well, we got some new ones now. We've got Berkeley. My mind's going blank. Ben Berkeley, or Ben Berkey, and then Berkeley. My mind's going blank. We had a turnover at the airport. We just got the newest employee's been there like 2 weeks, so less than 2 weeks. But anyway, we got really good staff down there, and then Christian Davis is taking my place down there, who was one of our operations specialists, and he's been there 2 days now, and so anyway, he's going to do a fantastic job. I'm really grateful that we were able to make the position full time. I've been part time all this time involved with the airport, and with the growth of the airport, to see it go to full time, actual full time airport manager. The timing I don't think could be better. The airport is just kind of ready to go to the next level. I'm sure you guys, everybody, when you drive down Main Street, I mean, it's rare. You don't see a plane coming in on final at the airport. It's a busy place. So.
Well, we got you a gift. Chris is going to travel to Alaska in July, so we got you a pass for all the national parks.
Oh, awesome.
And so it's a lifetime pass. They wanted to give you these straws too. And then we got you a gas card with the leftover money. Should get you to Provo. There's a $100 gas card here, so
Yeah.
a $100 gas card get you out of
It's
town.
it's not enough to start a plane with $100 gas, is it?
Appreciate it. So going there, so that's what we got.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I want to especially thank the council for the support. The airport, we've gone from when I first started to have 2 city councils of 2 cities where about half the members of the city councils wanted to see the airport go away. And to be able to go from that to the way the city's embraced the airport is touching to me, and I'm very grateful. Thanks.
Well, you deserve it, Chris. You're going to be missed. I'll go first with maybe a memory of Chris, but I know when we had fires on mountains down here and what that meant to the firefighters, what that meant to the organization, what it meant to the city, to be able to have an asset like that where those planes and helicopters and everything. I mean, I remember being down there at the time and you're running around like you're on fire, but it was because you were managing a chaotic situation, and you did very well there. I'll never forget you flying a plane and then letting go of the thing and making me fly it. That was a little bit odd, but yeah. But you've been a great person to have down there. Really knowledgeable and great work ethic. So we're going to miss you. We hope you, like you already said a week ago, you're going to stick around. We're not going to not see you, right? You're still at the airport. You're still flying.
Yeah, I've been part of that airport since I was 2. I don't think that's going to change now.
Yeah.
I wanted to just say, you made, my son, he proposed to his fiance with the help of Chris. I called Chris because he said, if you need to fly anywhere, come on down. So I said, Chris, would you be willing to let us come down, do the whole proposal down at the airport? And he got a plane out. We got the red carpet. It's such a great and special memory. And so I just will always appreciate that. And you have been fantastic. Thanks for all of your time and energy and doing it all part-time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Go back to that one picture of the runway. How do you, the bottom, that one. How do you get that picture at the bottom middle? quick enough that you don't get landed
Yeah,
on.
anymore, that's pretty difficult to do, but we have radios, so we know when planes are coming, so anyway, we slipped out and got that. It makes a good picture, though.
Very cool.
So
Yep.
Chris, I've not been on the council long enough to have worked with you much, but I can say that my dad has said many, many good things about you and that you've done a great job with the airport.
The citizens should know it's a huge asset to the city. I mean, the financial commitment that the city has, but the financial benefit that it receives from people flying in and out of here is a great thing, and a credit to you helping grow it.
Just first of all say thanks, Chris, for your time. I learned a lot from you just in that short time that I was over it, but your knowledge of the airport is so important that you remain on that board and continue to support us. My fondest memory of you is your dad making donuts at your donut shop in the back room there, that we'd come in the back door and get donuts. That's been a few years ago. But Chris's mom and dad had a donut shop on Main for a long, long time. The shop's still there. His mom's still alive. But and then also they were friends and neighbors of us for a long time. I knew Lana, and her dad was a developer in the community, Stubbs Construction. Built a lot of homes in this area over the years. So thanks for everything you've done for our city. We so much appreciate it. You've made our airport better by being there. Thanks, Chris.
I was on the board when I opened Cowboy Donuts, and I remember your reaction, because that's exactly what you did. You know, I thought that taking an irrigation turn in the middle of the night was not that big of a deal, but that was, you know, maybe a couple times a month, but every night. These guys started to see it when we'd get late into the city council meetings, and I'm like, come on, guys, it's late, and I gotta go make donuts at 2 in the morning. Yeah, but Chris he had some good memories to share there, so, with your bakery, like you say, on Main Street, so, with Cookie, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Well, my dad was passionate about the bakery, but also he was passionate about the airport.
Yeah.
He had a pilot's license, I think before he had a driver's license. That was a long time ago, and the flying club that's still going on down there had 2 aircraft. Started with a fabric-covered tailorcraft. My dad was a part of that group, and so you know, I have pictures, like say, of me when I was 2 years old down at that airport. So they say if you build a mile of road, you can go a mile. If you build a mile of runway, you can go anywhere. So, and I think that you, as a council, it's just been awesome how you've captured the vision and seen, you know, that it really is another front door to our community.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'll still be passionate about it for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Good work and exciting things to come in the future with the airport. So it's a credit to you on what happens in the future down there. You're setting it up for some great success. So we're excited for the future, and the citizens should be too. Okay, item D, Spanish Fork City Royalty Recognition. I think all of them are coming up this time.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay,
We're going to
come on
invite
up.
Miss Spanish Fork and all of her attendants. Come on up.
We're about to get into Fiesta Day season, where maybe many of these young women regret their decision of ever being.
No. How have the parades been going?
Oh, yeah, you've already been in some
Good.
parades, right?
Yeah, some have been great, and then I've heard about some others.
Yeah. It's gonna be similar to the Donut Man, not sleeping for a few weeks, but you'll get through it. Good work.
You'll make
Yeah.
it.
Okay, my name is Grace Ahinger. My parents are Reed and Kelly Ahinger, and you already heard a little bit about my SII, but it's called Love is an Action Word.
My name is Haley Pierce, and my parents are Brandon and Camille Pierce, and my social impact is called Be a Buddy, Not a Bully.
My name is Haley Campbell. My parents are Benjamin and Heather Campbell, and my social impact initiative is called Project I Can. It focuses on feeding the community through service.
Hi, I'm Hope King. My parents are James and Janine King, and my social impact is Together We Empower.
Anything else you guys want to tell us?
No, we're just happy to be here.
Good.
Get better than this.
That's very true. It doesn't get much better than this.
You hang out all night, and at 10:30, let's see if you say that. Maybe even 11.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I want to know, you interviewed, I think you did mock interviews maybe with a couple of these characters. Did that help at all as you went and actually had to interview in front of the judges? What was it like getting mock interviewed by them, and how did that help? Maybe somebody grab that microphone.
Go back to the mic.
And share. How did these folks help you at all?
I can go.
If at all.
Honestly, it made it less scary to me because if I can interview in front of people on city council and the mayor, then I can probably interview a couple of people I've never met before. So, I mean, yeah, it really helped me. I don't know about these guys, so.
I think also, like our city council, they're obviously very knowledgeable about Spanish Fork City and what it represents and what it stands for. And so I think getting their input on how we can better represent the community was really beneficial to the interviewing process as well. So thank you.
Well, it was very impressive. That was the first time I've done that, and it was very, all of you were very impressive of the way you spoke, the way you answered questions.
Right.
Curveballs thrown at you that I know Councilman Marshall is online too, but he was there too. But you guys just handled yourselves every time somebody walked out. I was like, well, that could be the next Miss Spanish Fork, you know? And so just good job. I mean, I'm sure it was hard that night and everything else, but you did awesome in those mock interviews too.
Yep, we're excited for this upcoming year, especially
too.
next month.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Being here. Thanks a lot.
for being
Thanks. Okay. Good work. What's that been now? A month ago that was done up at Maple Mountain High School? Is it?
Yes, I think
been a
it's been
month?
4
So you-
weeks,
you
right?
got a month under your belt already. Wow, time flies. Okay, that'll take us to agenda item number 5, public comments. Public comments guidelines is 5A. Is somebody going to talk to us about public comment guidelines, or is that just there as a placeholder? Okay. All right, so 5B, Horrocks Engineers, I-15 and 2700 North Interchange. Somebody from the public, oh, we thought they might be late, right?
They're not here yet.
They had to come to another council meeting.
They went to another council meeting, they should be here shortly.
Perfect, okay.
They're not there?
They'll be here in a minute.
Isn't that where you're employed, Councilman Marshall?
Fire them. They should be fired.
All right, we'll hold off on 5B, wait for them to get here. I know they're coming from another council meeting. And that'll take us to item 6, council comments. Councilman Marshall, we'll call on you first, like we're going to call on you first tonight. Is there any council comments you'd like to make to the public?
No, I'm gonna turn the time back to you guys.
Your daughter got married. You're not going to mention that you had a daughter get married?
I had a daughter get married. It was a wonderful day. Unfortunately, she made us go to Park City, so we couldn't have in Spanish Fork, but I have one more daughter, and she's getting married in Spanish Fork, period. So,
Made that part of the commitment. Okay. Well, it was a beautiful wedding, and good luck. Okay, we'll just go to Kevin next, and we'll go down this way. Councilman Euler?
Just got a couple of things. First of all, last week, the employees at the animal shelter shut down business for a little bit, and they all met at Petco here in town. And they were awarded by Petco's nonprofit, Petco Love, a grant of $55,000, which is pretty impressive. That'll go a long ways to help with a lot of immunizations and other needs that the animals have down at the shelter. So thank you, Petco, for your support there. If I'm not mistaken, if I remember right, they say that as you go into Petco and you make a purchase, they ask if you want to donate a little bit. If you donate, part of that goes towards things like this. So just so you know where your money's going. And then wanted to thank the fire department who last week helped out with the new networking for the Chamber of Commerce. The businesses gathered. Sounds like there was a great turnout. I was in Montana, so I missed it, but wanted to thank them for their support of our Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, Mayor.
Very cool. Thank you, Councilman Euler. Councilwoman Beck.
2 things. Just wanted to thank Miss Spanish Fork 2021. She performed beautifully up at Miss Utah at the Capitol Theater 2 weeks ago. She came in as first runner-up for Souls for Souls, so gathering the most shoes. She gathered 6,200 pair of shoes in Spanish Fork community. And the next person was Miss Pleasant Grove, gathered over 7,000 shoes, and that person won a trip to Africa. So Paisley was so close, but she did very, very well representing our city. And next, we just wanted to extend an invitation to all of our residents for next Monday night. That's June 27th. It'll be at the City Park, and we are going to be unveiling a new puzzle of Spanish Fork City. We're super excited. About, I want to say, a year and a half ago, staff came to us and presented this idea, and we hopped on board, Councilman Gordon and I, and some staff and residents in Spanish Fork, made some lists of must-haves, and it came together better than I ever could imagine. I'm so proud of it. We're so excited. Eric Dowdle, the artist, will be there from 6 to 8 p.m. at the City Park. We will have food, entertainment. It's going to be a lot of fun. We will unveil the puzzle. You will be able to purchase it that night. I believe he will be signing the puzzle as well. So we just invite the community to come out and join us for that event. Do you have anything else on that?
No, that's
Okay.
great. That's
all I have.
Very cool, very exciting. Okay, Councilman Gordon.
Last week, Councilwoman Beck and I had the opportunity to go to Tabitha's Way one morning to get some updates on how things are going for them. And Mayor was out of town, so his wife spoke on behalf of her husband and the First Lady, whose birthday it is today, by the way. She did a wonderful job talking about the asset that Tabitha's Way is to our community. And many people don't realize how much they need volunteers. Even you can volunteer your time, your money, or your business can go there. They've had Adobe recently come down with roughly 20 employees, and they sort and stock shelves, and there's such a turnaround on food that we've got to make sure that those dates on the food are good, right? And so just wanted to mention that's such a huge resource, having Wendy Osborne running such a great food pantry here in our community, that story after story of how impactful they are for families here in our community. So we're just grateful to be a part of that. Also wanted to mention how Fit City on last Saturday, this picture here was taken by myself from atop the fire. See how much higher it looks from up there? The bottom looking up, you're like, oh, it's not very high. So I was taking selfies up there, and then, but it was, the wind was blowing, and just awesome little 2.5K. I noticed Paul came across the finish line. We were cheering people on, and it's fun to take my kids down. There's people that communities that talk about health and wellness, and Spanish Fork's one that puts it to action. We talk about the importance of mental health, as well as being active and fit, and Spanish Fork City does not lack for opportunities to be able to do a lot of fun things with trails and other opportunities. So I'm extremely grateful that our now mayor, when he was a councilman, reached out to Intermountain Healthcare, received a grant from them. If you kind of recall the green wristbands that kind of started a lot of things like this, and a lot of people in Spanish Fork grabbed onto it. People come to us with ideas all the time, and those things fizzle. But I've watched many members of this organization going to businesses and teaching QPR. The mayor's wife is certified to do that, and she goes and takes, and they volunteer their time. They go to many church meetings, and they teach QPR, which is question, persuade, and refer, which is helping with suicide prevention. We don't just talk about it here in Spanish Fork, we do. And so this is important to us as a mayor and council, and it was just grateful to be a part of it on Saturday. So kudos to our firefighters that were there, first responders, and Dale and all of your staff. Thank you for all of your efforts. We had many booth sponsors there. They get to set up for free and be there, and is that correct? Right? Yeah. The county health department.
30 of them. Yeah, they're all resources.
30
available in our city for
30 booths of everything from mental health to WIC and the Utah County Health Department and all of those individuals. Excuse me. So very grateful to Parks and Rec and the Fit City crew on that. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Gordon. Councilman Argyle.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick, just want to thank again Dale and your staff. I think the water department, for the employee party, I think the water department did the cooking this year. Public Works. Oh, Chris is, okay. So, had a good turnout. I think they had a good enjoyable time. They gave away some pretty nice gifts. Except it sounded like all the managers were getting the gifts.
Tyler got a fake one.
A week vacation. I didn't even know it existed.
Anyway, it was good. I think the employees enjoyed it and enjoyed the food and the camaraderie they have. We have such good employees in our city, but thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilman Argyle. Thank you. A couple of things. Attended the APPA conference. That's the conference that I was out of town at, American Public Power Conference. I didn't send any pictures of that, but it was thousands of mayors, council members, and public works folks that are from power cities across the United States, and they get together once a year in a conference to discuss legislative issues and things that are related to public power. I sound like a broken record to say this again in a public meeting, but how important it is, and I know we've all been taught this lesson, how important it is to be a public power city in Spanish Fork, have control over that for our citizens, because our citizens are the shareholders of that. And this conference was out in Nashville, and you wouldn't think, at least I didn't know till I was there, but some big cities, Nashville is a public power city, right? And so here, not only in Utah does it work, but all across the nation, when public gets together and makes an organization and a section of their city that works well for the citizens and works well for them. So I was grateful to be there and learn from some really impactful leaders in the conference. One of the things that I knew the Fit City Fair was coming up, and the head of APPA got up and spoke in the closing session there and said something to the effect of, how important all this is in life and how important public power is and everything. But then he brought it down to a base level in his own life, and just talked a little bit personally about his own life, and talked about mental health, talked about physical health, and it stayed with me long enough that I talked to my family about it when we got home. Was he talked about health challenges in his own life and in his late spouse's wife and different things, and he made the mention that a sign they hang up in their home now says it's later than you think, and I kind of took me a minute to think about that, but it's later than you think, and he thought the message he's got in his house about that is he lives with him and his 4 daughters now, and his wife passed away, and he thinks, don't take a day for granted. It's later than you think, right? And so all that we can do to be physically well and mentally well, we're a community that deals with this day in, day out. Our public safety people can tell us it's a near daily occurrence in our city as far as mental health and wellness. And so yes, thanks Dale, thanks for your department for continuing the 6th annual fair there, all the booths that come out. It was a windy day, so they had to kind of hold on to their tents every now and then, but what a resource it was for hundreds of our citizens to come out and be together and kind of be on the same page with that stuff. I did notice there was one little Gordon girl, Lucy, next to you. She ran the 2.5K, right?
Yeah. I did not.
You didn't. You were there congratulating people.
Kevin and I did.
I was.
Yeah, there's photos.
The
that we did.
0.02
If you
of the
wanna-
2.5, yeah,
If you want to
yeah.
pull those up, but now's not the time.
One more thing, I got a couple emails this last week dealing with graffiti all over town. not all over town, but in some parts of town, I've got Lieutenant Harding here to speak to this a little bit, but I kind of wanted to make a public plea, but also maybe a word of warning, that it's not going to be tolerated in Spanish Fork. Every time we're notified of something like that, we, as far as elected officials, either notify our city managers or law enforcement directly, and they get right on it. But what we're going to try to do is be out in front of it and prosecute to the fullest extent anybody that would deface public property, someone else's private property. If you're doing it, if you see anybody do it, knock it off. The email that I was sent late last week was an embarrassment for something to be written like that inside our city, and it won't be tolerated. Any type of hate speech put up in our city is unwelcome, and it's against the law, and it will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So if it's a kid messing around, it's going to cost a lot of money. If it's somebody trying to intimidate, somebody trying to target any group, it will cost you a lot of money. Lieutenant Harding, maybe you can give us a little bit more specifics about what those are, what those charges can be from beginning to end.
Yeah, thanks for giving me just a minute. So as far as graffiti goes, a lot of times it's one of those crimes that gets overlooked a little bit until it impacts our own property, or we see it in a place that we really enjoy visiting, and we find it offensive that someone would deface that property and destroy the beauty of those places that we enjoy being at. So it is something that the police department takes very seriously. Reiterate your comments that it's not something that we tolerate. The penalties, and sometimes maybe people don't understand this, but the penalties can be quite severe for graffiti. As most property crimes, it's based on the value of the damage that you're caused with your graffiti. At a minimum, it's a Class B misdemeanor to do any type of graffiti, but it can elevate to up into a felony level offense based on the amount of the damage that's done. So it's something that needs to be taken serious. A simple Class B misdemeanor could be up to 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. And then as you get up into the felony level, you're obviously looking at prison time or $10,000, up to a $10,000 fine. So, and those fines are on top of any restitution that would have to be paid to repair the damage that was done through the graffiti. So it's certainly something that is not to be messed around with. We take it serious. And the last comment I'll make is we would ask the community that if they see anyone out doing graffiti or those types of activities, if they would please call into dispatch and have one of our officers respond out so that we can address that issue. That's what we'd ask from the public.
Perfect.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
Thanks, Lieutenant. So there's your warning. Eyes are out. Not only person eyes and physical eyes, but digital eyes are out. A stunt like that in our city is going to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So yes, if you do see it, please reach out to our law enforcement quickly so we can investigate it, we can get it covered up, and then we can find the responsible parties. Okay, one last thing. I did send Tyler Brandon Gordon mentioned it. Maybe we should blur that cake part out so you don't see how old my wife is on national television. But 30, maybe it's 30. Yeah, 30. All right, 30. Happy birthday, Amber. I love you. Sorry we're doing council meeting tonight instead of celebrating with you, but we celebrated last night a little bit. So I know that's not anything that all of these council members haven't had happen either, missing birthdays and ball games and celebrations. So thanks to you guys for indulging me there. But thanks for being here. Okay, we'll move on to Spanish Fork 101. Item A, agricultural protection area discussion. Dave Anderson, who's going to start this?
I'm going to start it. I'm going to try to be quick. I'm going to turn things over to Vaughn. this is an opportunity for you as the council to adopt an ordinance, which you were given a draft of earlier, in order to give people more reasons to continue to farm in Spanish Fork. I really think that's what it boils down to. By way of this being a draft, we'd like to discuss it to whatever extent you want to tonight, but really look forward to getting additional thoughts and feedback over the course of the next several weeks in anticipation of having public hearings with both the Planning Commission and you in July, in hopes of having something adopted in July. And that's where we're at. With that, we'll get to the important part with Vaughn.
So I want to give you just a little update of where we are in the process, and then also what's the benefit of doing agricultural protection areas, and then kind of the process to initiate one. So the benefits are there's no impact to greenbelt status. So you get your tax bill. Sorry, I couldn't find one from Utah County. Cache County tax bill. You wouldn't get one of those here, but there wouldn't be any change if you do a agriculture protection area. So also benefits to a property owner are regarding local restrictions. Local laws may not unreasonably restrict a farm practice or a farm structure. So you can't target those in your legislation. And also, the city can't pass any rezones without written approval from all the landowners within the agricultural protection area that are affected by the change. So they all have to consent to do a rezone. Nuisance protection is another benefit that the property owners would enjoy. The definition of nuisance is redefined to exclude agricultural practices. And because of that, it's a defense in both civil and criminal proceedings that you ran an agricultural operation if you were located within an agriculture protection area. So if somebody sued you civilly for a nuisance, you could raise this defense, or if you were prosecuted for a public nuisance, you could raise the defense. And there's a notice required on a subdivision plat for any new subdivision that is within 300 feet. Also regarding state agencies, there's benefits that they may not have rules that place unreasonable restrictions on agriculture. So they're supposed to evaluate their existing rules and their proposed rules for restrictions on agriculture. And they must submit their development plans to the advisory board for the county that reviews agriculture protection areas and to the Commissioner of Agriculture and Food. Also, with eminent domain, property owners enjoy some protection there as well. An advisory board approval is required. A notice is required to be filed with the city council and the advisory board. The joint city council and board have a public hearing, and eminent domain may only be approved for a highway or a waste disposal type facility if no reasonable and prudent alternative exists. For any other purpose, so, a park or other public facility or something like that, it would only be approved if it would not have an unreasonably adverse effect upon the preservation and enhancement of agriculture in that protection area, or, again, the normal one, no reasonable and prudent alternative exists. The process to establish an agriculture protection area is outlined in the state code, and then we are trying to adopt or considering an ordinance that would encapsulate that process within the Spanish Fork Code as well. The draft, as Dave mentioned, has been prepared and circulated, and it will be considered by the Development Review Committee soon. So we're underway with that pending ordinance. So just to go through the process a little bit, if you want to create an agriculture protection area, the property owners submit a proposal to the city council. It has to be signed by a majority of the owners, of the property owners in that proposed area. And that has to cover at least a majority of the area in that agriculture protection area. So theoretically, some area could be forced in as long as they meet those thresholds of area and number of owners. They have to meet a minimum acreage that would be set in the city code section on that. The city gets to decide what that is. A filing fee has to accompany it, and they have to define the boundaries of their area that they propose, and any limits that they propose on agriculture protection.
Hey, Vaughn. Shane has a question.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Bob. Hey, is it just a simple majority?
Yes, a simple majority of the owners, so the diversity of owners, how many you have, and the majority of the area has to be owned by those people that have signed.
Okay, greater than 50%.
Yep, we're talking more than 50%.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Then the notice that needs to be provided for when the city's received a proposal, posted on the public notice website. This is pretty typical. 5 public places that are near that protection area, and then mailed to property owners within 1,000 feet. In the notice, you tell people that the proposal's been reviewed or received and it's open to public view, and that any person may file a written objection or propose a modification. And then there's a statement that the advisory board and the planning commission will review the proposal. And then also the details of the upcoming city council hearing. So you got to provide that information. The process then going forward with the modifications and the reviews is that there's 15 days for the public to submit written requests to modify or object. 45 days from when the proposal was received, the planning commission needs to provide its written report to the council. Same, and they evaluate things like the effect on city policies and objectives, the evaluation criteria, and they may recommend modifications, and they evaluate any of the objections that were received. They make their final recommendation. Similar process for the advisory board. They also have 45 days to submit their report to the city council. They recommend modifications if necessary. They evaluate the evaluation criteria. They evaluate the objections that were received, and they make a recommendation. The public hearing then comes to the city council. The council is the body that gets to make the decision on whether or not to create one. They first send out the notice of their public hearing. They hold their hearing. They review the recommendations of the advisory board and the planning commission. They accept public comment at the hearing. And within 120 days of receiving that proposal, they have to either approve, modify, and approve, or reject the proposal. And then once that's done, they record a notice of creation with the county recorder and the Commissioner of Agriculture and Food. So just so you know, these are the evaluation criteria in the ordinance that's been drafted. Most of these come from the state code. You go over the current use of the land, what its current zoning is, how viable is it for agriculture production, evaluate the existing and proposed farm improvements, anticipated trends in agriculture and technological conditions, and any planned roadways, parks, utility corridors, or commercial developments. Such areas may be excluded from the agriculture protection area. And finally, just a little bit of summary on some other procedures in the Act. How you add land to an area that's already been established, you just follow the original procedure. By removing land, if you want to do that, there's only two cases that you can do that. Upon request of an owner. If that happens, then they shall be removed. You really have no discretion. And then the second is after a 20-year review by the city council. So once you create one, you let 20 years pass before you can reevaluate agriculture protection area that you've adopted. And at that point, you can modify it, or continue it, or remove it. So that's
Nothing
basically,
can be changed in a 20-year period?
nope. It's a protection area. So that's why you would want to be careful in evaluating. They have all those, the advisory board recommendation, the planning commission looks at our goals and policies, and they make their recommendations. And there's a recent case from the Utah Court of Appeals that said that the city council has the discretion and authority to create them or not, and to modify them. And so in that case, they removed master planned roads, or they removed utility corridors, so that they wouldn't have any trouble with establishing those if they needed to later, and since it was already on the city's master plans. So
Vaughn, can you explain what the advisory board is? Who would
advisory
sit- who would
board
sit
is,
on that?
is a board created by the county. It's the county conservation district board, basically.
Culture Protection Area Advisors.
So that's a county level thing? That's
Yeah,
not
there's
something the
a
city
county
puts together?
advisory board, yes.
Okay.
Yep. The county's established theirs already, and if you were to create one, they would have to go there for their recommendation and evaluation.
Hey, Shane had another question.
Go ahead, Shane.
Thanks, Ed. So on the removal, if one property owner in the original 40 acres wants to go out, they can.
Yes, it's completely up to the property owner.
Okay.
And it doesn't defeat let's say the area drops below 40 acres, that doesn't defeat the agriculture protection area at that point. It continues. It's just if a property owner wants to exit, they can. They just make the
Okay.
request to the city council. City council must approve it, and then they record a new or revised notice of the boundaries of that agriculture protection area.
So to change the boundary and add a property, you don't need another 40 acres to come in. You could do it, if the original was 40 acres and the next one was 5, you could add the 5.
Yeah, you can add 5. The process is more lengthy. You just repeat the process that we just discussed with the
But it can be
advisory.
one property owner with 5 acres. It doesn't have to be.
Yep, it could be one property owner with very little acreage at all. But if they wanted to join, they could go through the process and petition the council for that addition.
And I think Councilman Beck asked this, but the city council cannot remove a property from ag protection.
Not within that first 20 years. 20
Okay.
years after it's created, you can reevaluate it.
Okay, thank you.
So if I'm a property owner, I've got 40 acres, and I get put into the ag protection, my property was zoned rural, residential, does it then change at that point to an agricultural zone?
No, it doesn't change the zoning at all. This is just kind of a extra layer of regulation on top of the city's zoning. But it provides those protections that we talked about for those property owners.
Once that property is in the ag protection, can the city then at that point change the zoning in any way? Or
No,
will it remain
no, that's,
whatever it was zoned when it went into the protection is what it's gonna be zoned for the next?
unless the property owner's consent. Remember, the property owners would have to sign, give their written consent to change their zoning.
Okay.
So, I mean, they could request a zone change, and certainly you could do it, but the city couldn't do it on its own.
So if I'm a property owner that wants to rezone, I'm part of the ag protection, the rest of my neighbors don't want me to rezone, I can just leave the ag protection with
Yep.
my property, and at that point, I can rezone.
Or you can stay and you could do your rezone request. It says, has to be signed by those who are affected by the zone change. I think that means just that property, and not any minor effects it might have on neighboring property owners.
Yeah.
But because of that provision, they could just leave if they wanted to, so that's how I read that.
The original acreage to create the protection area is 40 acres.
That's a proposal. That's what it is in the Utah County. And so I kind of put that in the ordinance as a starting point for discussion. It could be smaller, it could be larger.
Is that the aggregate amount? So 4 property owners with 10 acres each?
Yeah.
Or 1 property owner,
The-
40
the-
acres?
The cumulative area of the agriculture protection area,
Has to add up to
we have to
40 acres.
decide what that minimum number is.
So it could be 5 acre
Could be
pieces
5,
that'll
10, 20,
add up
40,
to that.
whatever.
Gotcha, okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? That was great. Good questions. All right.
Thanks, Vaughn.
Thank you, Vaughn.
Thank you, Vaughn. Okay, our Horrocks people are here, but if there's no more discussion on this from up here, I made a mistake. Never make a mistake, but I made a mistake. Public comments, I read a public comment guidelines and didn't invite the public to speak. Public comments, if there's anybody from the public, before we invite Horrocks in our public comment section to come speak, if there's anybody from the public that wanted to address the mayor and council tonight, you're more than welcome to do so. Please. Name, rank, and serial number. Or just name.
Well, I would give you my serial number, but that's my social.
Oh, okay. Don't do that.
And in the olden days, it was a different number, and I'm not giving my social security number on a public.
Fair enough. Fair
even
enough.
though it's probably known. I mean, they got my DNA sample, so it doesn't matter anyway. I just had one question on the ag
Tell us who you are so we get you down. Sorry.
Dan Davis.
Thanks, Dan.
And you need what else?
That's it.
Just name it. The ag area, does it have to be contiguous? Is that when they touch?
Yes, contiguous.
Okay. I just wanted to say, regarding out in my area, the development that is on its way, that I think it would be logical to step it up in more of a, I hate this word. Okay, there's this P word, I really hate it. It's called progressive. And it's funny how good words in this world get used for bad, to define bad. And eventually, if the good takes over the bad words get redefined as good. I know that's out there, but my point is, if we're going to have a estate in my area, Mill Road to just east of 1700 West, be an estate ground, I think that line should be written in stone, that none of that ground should be allowed to be medium density like has been proposed in this latest Arrive Homes proposal. I think that line needs to stay. They had a small portion of it that they wanted to transfer to medium density to accommodate their townhomes. I don't think they should be able to do that. Second of all, I think the progressiveness that I want to apply should be, it shouldn't go from a state density and step up to 7 units per acre, which is, I guess, the definition of medium density. That seems high density to me because it's the upper level of medium density. If the freeway is destined to be 12, 20, 30 units per acre, then it should step up progressively so that the people in the estate property don't have to look out their back window and see something they were running from in the first place. So maybe go from 3rd acre to maybe 1/4 or 5th, and then some distance after that it goes to a higher density, and then some distance, maybe, I don't know what the logical or what would be the best choice, but it should step up instead of go immediately to apartment complexes where you got 4 stories and or higher, or maybe even a little bit lower. So to me, that makes sense if you're thinking of using the definition of the word planning in a correct manner. So that's just my opinion, and that's just what I wanted to say. So I just want to say 3rd acre stays 3rd acre. Medium density should start out maybe less, 5th, 1/4, and then go up from there. So think about that. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for coming. Anyone else from the public like to address the council? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Horrocks. We know you came from another meeting as well, and you're in our public comment section as well to talk about the I-15 2700 North interchange. Just a small part of our community that can have big implications. Please, no pressure, but Shane Marshall's on the line too,
All right. Darren Bunker. I am a project manager for UDOT. Horrocks is the consultant on the project. So we just kind of wanted to come and give you an update on the project. First of all, I don't know if you guys have any burning questions you want me to address beforehand. Any questions?
When's it done? Or is that too soon?
Okay, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Let's see, are we going to use the PowerPoint on this, or, well, it's already up there. Awesome.
There's a clicker on the left side of that microphone.
Right here.
There you go. Maybe I'll say, I won't have a
Well, you said comments. Did you say comments or questions, Darren?
Either one.
Just make a quick comment. We really appreciate Darren. He's a great contact for us. As we work through our issues with UDOT, we have a quarterly meeting that we meet with the UDOT staff, and it's very productive. And of course, we think that we have the best relationship with everybody, whether it's Nebo School District or UDOT. And I'm sure since Darren is here, he'll say, yes, we do. But in addition to that, Darren regularly meets with our staff on other issues to coordinate as he handles all the projects, I think, for maybe this area, or at least he seems to be the point of contact for us. And we just really, really appreciate the working relationship that we have with Darren and with UDOT. But since he's here and we work with him so much, Darren, we really appreciate what you do.
Appreciate that. Feeling is reciprocal as well. Been great to work with Spanish Fork. Anyway, so we'll jump into here. Let me see if I can, there we go. We're actually going to cover two separate projects, but they're interrelated. The first project is the interchange project at what we are now calling Dry Creek Parkway, which is 1600 South, 2700 North, 1600 South in Springville, 2700 North in Spanish Fork. From this point, I'll just call it Dry Creek Parkway, a lot easier. So the first one is the interchange, and then the second project we'll cover briefly is the Sharp-Tintic Railroad Consolidation Project. The project overview on the interchange project is that we are going to keep the existing bridge over I-15. That bridge is about 10, maybe 12 years old. We'd like to get 40 years out of a bridge, so we're trying to get some lifespan out of that bridge. So the initial project will be to create a simple diamond interchange at this location. And then at some future date, that interchange will be converted to a SPUI. We imagine that will probably happen around 2050 or so when it gets converted. That'll give us the lifespan out of the bridge.
The SPUI.
A SPUI, you've probably driven several of those without even knowing. It's called a single point urban interchange. It's where the signal is in the middle of the intersection instead of on each side of the bridge. So University Avenue in Orem, I think even 4th South in Springville, those are SPUIs. Basically, you're eliminating one light cycle.
Okay.
So you're getting about 30% more traffic through those intersections than if you had separate signals. Another element of this project is we will be converting Dry Creek Parkway from a current 2-lane road to a 5-lane cross section all the way from Main Street in Spanish Fork out to SR 51. One of the biggest questions we've had as we went through the environmental process is why aren't you taking it all the way over to 89? That is being considered. That's a separate project. It'll have its own environmental process. And so that's not actually part of the scope of this project, but it is being considered as a future project. Another element is, let me see, is there a little thing on here?
Yeah, there should be that near the top. You want a laser?
There is a laser out there too.
There we go. So right here, you've got a railroad line and a railroad line over here. This is the Sharp, this is the Tintic, okay? We are going to be building, as part of this project, a bridge over the Sharp line. I don't know if you've ever been out here when a train has come through there. Typically, you're waiting for 20 minutes, 30 minutes sometimes. And so one of the benefits of this project, we'll have a bridge over that railroad track. And so there will be no more waiting for the train to go through. The other part of this project is we will be, as a result of putting these ramps in, the frontage roads need to be realigned. And so we'll be realigning those frontage roads. So that's pretty much the high-level overview of this project. Let's see here. We did an environmental assessment, and since that time, some things have changed. The first thing is that we have definitely decided to do the bridge over the railroad track, which I mentioned. Originally, the alignment went straight through here. We are now shifting that alignment in that area, basically to avoid having to build retaining walls on the sides of the embankment slopes. Those are pretty expensive, so to save some money there, we shifted the alignment. That has many other benefits, safety benefits. Right here is 1750. In its original alignment, as you were coming down to Dry Creek Parkway, looking to the left, the concrete barrier for slope protection was creating some sight distance problems. So by shifting it south, we can eliminate the wall and have a regular fill slope and get rid of that concrete barrier and improve that sight distance. There are a lot of utilities in this corridor. Springville has a sewer line specifically. We're anticipating about 8 inches of consolidation in this area, meaning that a lot of those utility lines, if that embankment was sitting on top of them, would push those utilities down about 8 inches. So you can imagine what problems that would create with a sewer line, right? And so by shifting it to the south, we remove that consolidation risk on those utilities. In addition, we don't have to relocate them, which is another cost savings measure. We recognize that by making this shift, there are some property owners in this area right here that will be negatively impacted, but we feel that the benefits of the shift outweigh the need to acquire additional property from those property owners. It will allow us to have a utility corridor through here so that we don't have to relocate those and buy additional easements for those utilities. Another change is that this 10-foot multi-use pathway in the EA was on the south side, and we went through a value engineering process, and the recommendation came out of that we shift that 10-foot multi-use path to the north side and potentially share that with the utility corridor through the whole area, along the whole corridor. And another reason for that shift is most of the residences today are on the north side already. Most of the business development on the south side is industrial at this point. There are some planned residential areas, but today most of the residences are on the north side. And then lastly, we are recommending postponing, not removing, but postponing the southbound on-ramp to I-15. That recommendation that we're making to the FHWA and asking for that exception is based on safety. As I-15, US 6 traffic is exiting, that's where the southbound on-ramp at the new interchange would be coming on. So you get this crossover merging issue. Traffic analysis states that we would be preventing about 10 accidents a year by not building that at this time. We do have some triggers in our request to FHWA to reconsider the southbound access to I-15. Those triggers are widening of I-15 through this area, which is a planned project on the STIP, converting this to a SPUI, as I mentioned before. That would be another trigger. And then the last trigger would be the reconfiguration of the US 6 I-15 interchange. So any one of those projects will trigger a reevaluation of this access. Any questions to that point? Okay.
Yeah, if I may. So let's talk, maybe highlight again for the council, as you walked through the comments of pushing that south, pushing the alignment south. Of course, we've talked about this with you, but maybe for their benefit. We recognize that it consumes more land on the Spanish Fork side of the road, and so as we hear that, we think, oh, well, you're favoring the Springville side of the road at the detriment of the Spanish Fork side of the road. But as we talked about it, and as I understand it, really the cost savings that comes from the berms associated with the railroad, retaining wall costs that go away because you don't have to do that, as well as some of the utility corridors. Maybe highlight those.
Especially the risk with the utilities, right? There's a significant impact to those utilities on the north side. Favoring one community over another is not our business. We go through a regular process of evaluating criteria, and that's how we came up with that decision. So.
And can we have access to that utility corridor? Will there be any conduits in there such that we can have access?
The one on the north side? Yeah, that's where Spanish Fork Power will be going.
Okay.
So there's some Spanish Fork Power utilities on that north side that will be utilizing that corridor.
And when you shift south into property owners there, you're buying property to build the road? I mean,
Correct.
you're
We would buy
compensating
that
for
property from them. Yep. And just to kind of give you a kind of a level of magnitude, right? Property in this area is, I don't know, at a high range, $30 a square foot. A retaining wall is $150 a square foot. So that kind of tells you the difference in magnitude and costs. And so when you look at that, the safety aspects, the utility risks in the future by having that embankment on those, and long-term maintenance of those utilities as well, right? We were really concerned that over the long haul, having to get in that close to those walls, because the original plan was to have those utilities, the underground ones, kind of close to the wall. You start digging up the utilities for maintenance or whatever, then you have this risk of impacting the stability of the wall as well. So now we're eliminating that wall, we're just having fill slopes, and it just seems like an overall better solution.
Looking at the map, we're only talking about 3, maybe 4 property owners that would be affected. Does that sound
What's that?
about? Says, looking at the map, there's maybe 3, 4 property owners that would be affected by that.
On the
Does that
south
sound about
side?
right?
So Springville owns this property over here, so they'll be impacted. This is the old Santana Raceway stuff. They acquired that through a corridor preservation from MAG. And so UDOT will be purchasing that from MAG. Over here, you've got the Halls that own these 2 parcels here, and you've got the Schwartzes that kind of own this piece here. So really, there's only 2.
Is it going to affect anything on the right side or the east side of Canyon Creek?
No.
Okay.
Maybe just a little bit, actually, right? Just a
a
little,
little bit.
a little bit of a corner right here.
Okay.
But the Hall property was a full take anyway, even before the shift, and I'll explain why. That has to do with the Sharpton Take project.
Okay.
So those two parcels there were already full takes.
One thing that was helpful for me to know, the footprint of the road, the right-of-way doesn't shift, right? So let's say there was curb on that north side of the road today, that will still be the northern edge of the right-of-way. It'll just, the topography will be different as that fill slope comes down, right?
Are you talking about, Are you talking about in this area where it shifted?
Yeah.
No, the alignment does shift.
Right, but the right-of-way with the fill slope and everything still is kind of where it is today, right?
Well, the footprint obviously gets bigger because you're going from a wall to a fill slope, a 2-to-1 fill slope, so the right-of-way actually does expand.
Right.
Yeah. Now, what's that?
Hit your next slide.
Oh, okay. There we go. There's a picture of what it will look like. So this kind of gives you a demonstration of both projects, right? The interchange project, which will build the bridge, and then you see the tracks coming through. The track on the left is the existing track. The 2 tracks on the right is part of the Sharp-Tintic project, okay? And so we're planning for a double track through there. So that's a little bit. Go ahead.
Let me ask this question, because I'm sure you guys know or have talked about it. If Front Runner or when Front Runner extends south, will they go under that bridge as well?
Yes. Yeah, so that double track is the Front Runner line.
Okay.
That you're seeing, and that's a future track. I do need to mention that environmental process is going to be kicking off pretty soon. It's called the Front Runner Forward Project, and so I'd recommend you get familiar with that project as well, because that project is the one that will determine where the different stations will be going. We had a developer come in and say, the Front Runner station is going to be right here, and so forth. And I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be there or not, right? That's not a decision that our project is making. That's a decision that the Front Runner Forward project will determine, and they'll go through that whole environmental process just like any other other project with public input and all that kind of stuff. So I'd encourage you to look that up and get involved in that discussion. But let's see, where's my thing? So this is that hall this is the hall property that I was talking about. And you can kind of see we're clipping the western portion of the hall property with that project. Okay. Any questions on this? So you can kind of see the fill slopes here, and how that benefits the project.
So will this complete, this, with the Tinnick and this, you said it's 2 projects, but will it complete together?
They will.
Because that track will go away at the same time, so then will we realign Canyon Creek, Seth? Wasn't that?
Absolutely, yeah.
When we do
And that's
that?
always been the plan, the developer that put that in.
So the old track you can kind of see right through here.
Okay.
Okay, that's the Tintic line.
So this will eliminate clear back to Provo?
This will eliminate clear back to Springville.
Okay, back.
Out to 4 South. So
Okay.
4 South in that area, you have the Tintic line coming off, and then you have the 2 Provo sub lines coming out of there. That kind of split in between SR 51 and US 89. You have 2 railroad tracks through there. That's another project for the future. Those lines will be consolidated as well.
Would you go back, maybe a couple of slides to the, go forward one. So this, you're talking about this road right here, Chad.
Talking about that track right there.
Yeah, and so the plan has always been that this road would come here and
Would realign, yeah.
connect right to there. But we can't have that intersection here because it is wonky with that railroad. So this was the interim plan, and then the developer would put that road in later, which that later is now within the next couple of years. Thanks, Darren.
Does this just stay elevated after you go over a bridge here? It stays elevated to get on, or does it drop back down and then get back up?
It drops down and then back up.
That'd be kind of fun.
Well, and then you can see that in your in the slides that you show, the access to the businesses looks like similar to a stub road right there, right? Is that what I'm seeing? Right there.
Yeah, so that's depressed down there.
Access to all that
Yeah,
industrial that
we'll
Springville
maintain
has.
that, yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and so we've been able to avoid taking those businesses on that side. Here's the schedule for the interchange project. So as you can see, phase 1 is basically reconstructing the frontage roads and then building the embankments for the ramps on the north side of the interchange. Okay, if that makes sense. So rerouting frontage roads, ramps on the north side. Okay, we're going to be advertising that portion of the project this fall. They're going to be getting going on construction kind of like late this year, early next year. Phase 2 is everything else. The 5-lane road, bridge over the railroad track, everything else. So we'll be advertising that in the winter of 2023, and they'll be getting going 2024, and will be completed in the fall of 25. And I know that seems like a long time, but let me explain why that construction schedule is so long. As I mentioned, we have to consolidate the soils in this area. So you come in, you put the embankment down, and that embankment has to sit for about 8 months in order to compress the clay soils out there. As I mentioned, we anticipate about 8 inches. So you don't want to be putting a bridge on and then have that bridge settle 8 inches. So you got to give that embankment enough time to kind of settle out. So there's 8 months there. Another issue here is dealing with UPRR. Their process of review and approval extends the length of the project as well. And so that's why we're not able to advertise earlier than 2024. Okay? And then they have certain requirements in terms of when you actually go out and build things as to having their folks on site being able to construct during certain times. If the trains are coming through, you have to stop work. So there's a lot of delays in construction as well. So that should answer somebody's question about when's it gonna be done, which is the one we get most often, right? When's it gonna be done? All right, jumping over to the Sharp Tintic project. As you can see here, this is the Sharp line, this is the Tintic line. We're building a connector in between right here. As you saw, this is the double track that you saw in that one graphic. What that means is that we will be able to remove train traffic from this point here all the way to 4 South in Springville. Basically what that does is it closes 7 at-grade crossings. So that's a pretty significant safety benefit. As part, let's see, it says grade separated railroad crossing, but that's actually part of the other project.
Can I ask a question on that? Is there a reason, or I guess what's the reason why you chose this location to make the connection rather than west of I-15 or something like that? Especially like if this is eventually gonna be or possibly be realigned or redone with the Highway 6.
That's a good question, and I haven't had that asked before. I'll have to look into that one to see if there were other locations that were considered.
I don't know, I'm not an engineer,
No,
so I
no,
don't know,
that's
but
a
I
really
just
good
wonder if it
question.
would benefit if eventually this needs to be redone, to not have the train
going through there
underneath it.
I think one of the reasons I heard was from the front runner people, because on this side you have tons of businesses existing. This is just pasture ground right here, right now, farm acre.
You also have.
This is, how can that?
That makes sense, Chad, because you've got that extra train line that you will be building for.
Yeah, and this is front runner's property now, so.
That would make sense.
Yes, and it also has to do with services for UPRR, right? There are pullouts in here that train services. That's why you're getting the stoppages on 1600 today, is because they're coming down here and they're doing all their change outs.
In that area.
And so that train is stopped on there, right?
Okay.
And so I think if you were to do this, you'd have a hard time servicing these rail customers in this area. So now I don't have to follow up with you. That's the answer.
Nice work.
Okay. So this alignment will also serve as the future front runner alignment, as I mentioned before. The specific front runner stations will be determined by the other project. Here's the construction schedule for the Sharp Tintic. As you can see, it aligns pretty well with the construction of the interchange in that by mid to fall of 2025, both projects will be completed. What we are pointing out here is that Dry Creek Parkway will need to be closed for a period of time. We're estimating somewhere between 6 to 9 months. And that closure would occur between 1750 West and Canyon Creek. So if somebody's coming up on Canyon Creek, they just won't be able to turn left and go across the Tintic line or the Sharp line, but they will be able to turn right or go straight or make some other movements off of Canyon Creek. But between Canyon Creek and 1750, we'll need to close that down for a period of time. That is a city road. It was pointed out to us in our last meeting. And so even though I kind of said that like it's a for sure thing, it's still a city road. And we need to work with the cities on how, if, and when that closure occurs. And so we'll still be going through that process. And through that process, we'll have the discussions on repercussions of trying to leave it open, right? For example, will it delay our ability to get permits from UPRR if we decide to leave that open? So there are some repercussions for the decisions that we make related to that. But this project is moving ahead pretty well. We already have submitted our 25% submittal to UPRR. So we anticipate that we'll get their blessing to move forward probably in about 6 to 12 weeks on that one. We can move to full design at that time. I think this is kind of what I was explaining before. You'll notice here the little star. We do anticipate that the interchange and the railroad will be open prior to the project being complete. That's kind of typical on large projects like this. There's a lot of wrap-up things, fences, all kinds of stuff at the end of a project. But we are anticipating, you know, mid-July, August timeframe of 2025 of having that open. So just some information if you need to contact us as well. So, any other questions?
Have you selected any contractors for performing the work?
We'll start that phase one contractor selection this winter. Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Anything else?
We don't want to ask the guy that's online if he has any questions.
No, keep him quiet.
I don't know why.
I'm good. If I don't know it, I'm probably gonna get fired, so I'm gonna just not ask questions.
Smart.
Can't fire you, Shane. We elected you.
Oh, actually, there is one more thing that I want to address up front before people ask the question and have to go through the roundabout getting answer. But there's been discussion on a jurisdictional transfer for Dry Creek Parkway. We are operating on this project under the assumption that that road will go through a jurisdictional transfer. So that will become a state road. I mentioned earlier that it's a city road. We need to communicate with you guys and work with you guys on certain things. But everything that we're doing to date, we're doing under the assumption, and it's just an assumption, that it will go through a jurisdictional transfer after the project is completed. So if things like the cross-section of the road, we're using state standards for that. Utility relocations. Early on, we were using the franchise agreement. That's under like city jurisdiction, but we have moved that to a state code in terms of reimbursing for relocations. That means that cities don't have to pay anything. Other utilities, maybe they don't have to pay anything, but they might have to pay 50%. So there's a lot of things like that we're doing to ensure that whatever we do on this project doesn't interfere with the ability to do that jurisdictional transfer. So.
Is the only building you have to raise the one on the northeast corner?
What's that?
Is the only property that you have to raise is that building that's on the northeast corner? Probably your very first.
Yeah, this actually there's two areas. So there's actually two buildings right here.
Okay.
That are going to have to be taken down.
Okay.
And then there's another one, the Nickelcade.
Comania hot tub.
That one needs to come down as well.
So time frame for that would be early 23 probably.
That one will be earlier than most, yeah.
Okay.
Because we have to build the
Somebody was
ramps.
asking, weren't you?
Yeah, that'll be a sad day. I know that it has a lot of history.
Yeah.
A lot of people enjoy the memories that place is built, so.
Yeah. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a big deal for our city, big deal for the area when residents, and we get it. We go to the same area, Canyon Creek and the hospital and everything else where our citizens go, and citizens from all over the county go. This is the solutions for some of that congestion that we're experiencing there, trying to get on and off Highway 6. And I know it's been in the work for many years. We appreciate your partnership, your help, and staff's tireless work on this, and councils before us too, in seeing this come to fruition, because it's a long time coming, and it'll help our citizens and the whole South County area. So, thank you again.
And just we have a project on US 6 too. I don't know if you're aware of it, but next year.
Will you come back up?
Yeah.
You want me to come back?
Yeah.
For sure.
Citizens got to hear about Highway 6 too. They ask us about that. Yeah.
So we do have a project on Highway 6 where we will be adding dual left-hand turn lanes coming off of US 6 onto Canyon Creek and Expressway. And so those dual lefts will be both north and south on both of those intersections. So that we're in design right now for that. We're coordinating with the project that Spanish Fork has for widening Expressway Lane on the north side. So we're coordinating with Spanish Fork on that one. Another element is that we will be adding a third eastbound lane coming out of Expressway going up the hill. So that will allow trucks to be in the right-hand lane or even in the middle lane and have the ability for cars to pass those trucks as they're making that initial climb after they're at a stops condition at Expressway. So I just wanted to make you aware that that's coming as well.
When's that getting done?
Next year, next spring.
All right.
They'll start construction on that.
What's the timeline? How long does that typically take?
That one will just be that spring and summer.
Okay, great.
That'll be nice next summer to travel down that area.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it, is because,
Clear up.
maintenance of traffic on that. We have done something, there is some concrete pavement on the westbound side. That, we're gonna remove that. So the whole thing will be asphalt. Because that will all be asphalt, we don't have to worry about concrete drying times. That will solve a lot of the maintenance of traffic issues during that project.
I know with Expressway, we're doing some work there with 2 left turns going into Canyon Creek. Do we need to do any widening on Canyon Creek, or is it wide enough to handle 2 left turns going into Canyon Creek?
It has the receiving lanes to
Already?
accept those dual lefts, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're okay there.
Great, thank you. So
Hey, oh,
we'll see some improvements coming in that area, which are greatly needed. And we appreciate your good work. Thanks again.
Mayor, can I just make a comment before, not for you guys, to Mr. Davis, as he came up for public comments? I just wanted to let you know real quick that staff and mayor and council are going to start relooking at the general plan. So I just wanted to encourage you to be involved in that process. I think we'll be starting that here in the next couple months. We'll pretend it's gonna be in the
Hopefully.
next couple months. Anyways, I just wanted you to know that, and we'll be looking at that in your area. So just be involved, because we'll have public outreaches and.
Yeah, you'll get a notice to come speak to that. Speaking of an area you're talking about, it's not anything we've even seen yet, because it's not something that's come to the council yet. But we will be discussing all areas of Spanish Fork, including that area
Right.
in general
In the
plan
future.
discussions.
Apparently it's on the schedule for the DRC tomorrow.
But that's
Not-
way
not
before
this-
us.
Not this general plan.
So, yeah, I'd love to do that, and, well, I had it, I'm just getting old. But, what was it? Oh, well, I'll.
Okay, I just
Yeah.
wanted you to know about
I
that.
just wanna stay, I just don't wanna see things crammed in. There's too much cramming going on.
So, item 7, we already took care of with the ag protection area, and just to reiterate what Vaughn said, public hearings coming up on that. DRC, Planning Commission, then back to the council, so watch for public hearings that you can come if that affects you, and you want to speak about that. Public hearings coming up on that. Takes us to item 8, consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items?
Second. Motion made by Councilman Gordon and seconded by Councilman Argyle to approve the consent items. All in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Yes, I mean,
Yes.
all in favor, say yes. Yes. Sorry, off to a bad start there. Sarah? Get yes. All right. Takes us to item 9, public hearing, ordinance fiscal year 2022, budget revision number 4. Seth Parents.
I like hearing you talk about items that are coming up in next year's budget as if they're already approved. Makes life a lot easier for us so we don't have to guess. I love that. It shows that we try to be in tune with what is requested, right? So tonight, we have what is often referred to as the cleanup revision, the final revision of the year as fiscal year 2022 comes to an end in 9 days. There are a couple of accounts here and there that, due to how projects or budgets or whatever have been allocated and spent, that particular line is over. New things have come in, or whatever happens in a year. So this is a cleanup budget. Also involved in some of the cleaning up is that projects didn't happen And so we can take the funds away and put them in, save them for that project maybe next year as we look to roll it over. So the short of it is that there are lots of additions and subtractions, but the general fund, that's on the next slide, sorry. Moving funds from, a big change will be moving funds from the general fund, different capital projects within the general fund into the capital project funds. And we're starting to use those capital project funds more efficiently. And you hear us talk about carryover items and projects rolling over, and sometimes you budget for a project this year and we budget for $2 million of that project, or the whole $2 million if it's a $2 million project. And because of how construction years are, maybe we only start working on that in May at the end of the fiscal year, and so we spend $250,000. So then we budget again, and we have to roll that money over, and so then you see it again, and it's another $2 million. And then because it's a 2-year project, it spans a third fiscal year, and so it looks like that project may have cost $6 million. But really, just how it hit budget years, we carry those things over. So that gets kind of confusing and certainly less effective. And so we're starting to use those capital projects funds more. And so with this budget in Parks and Rec, speaking of projects that didn't get completed, certain elements of the construction of Electric Park, Rocky Mountain, that's already in the capital projects fund. Projects at the fairgrounds, Urban Forest, I think was the other one. We're going to move that money out of the general fund and shift it into a capital project fund, and then it'll just sit there. And when they don't spend it, it'll fall into the balance of that capital project fund. We pull it out again, and we don't have to have some of these carryover games that it feels like we play. So that's one thing that you're starting to see here, and you see that in the FY23 budget as well. The short of it is a net decrease to the general fund, net increase into all of the enterprise funds combined, and that's because of capital projects for those guys. And then I want to just touch on, as we go through the budget process, we are evolving as we grow up, getting a little bit more sophisticated, and I think that's a great thing. I'd like to see this cleanup budget, frankly, I'd like to see this cleanup budget disappear, that we don't need to use it. So we will refine next year's budget process and maybe eliminate this final revision, which is a huge impact on staff. Not so much for you, because this really is kind of just a cleanup budget, so we don't spend a lot of time with it for you. But if we are budgeting right and working with our auditors right, we think that with the direction you've already given us and the controls that you've already given to the city manager, we can deal with a lot of the changes by just simply moving money within budgets around and taking care of most of the challenges that we see at the end of a fiscal year. So if we can eliminate altogether revision 4 next year, that would be awesome. So let me just touch on a few highlights. And we'll just look down here, the budget going from 34 million to 33.9. You can see where some of the funds are moving around, and major movement in parks and in fairgrounds. Let's see, or I guess this is by expenditure. This is by division. So the major movement in parks and in the fairgrounds right there. Engineering had a couple of projects. I'm trying to remember what was the biggest one there that made you go up 200, but I can't remember off the top of my head now, Jared. A lot of these changes are just fine-tuning personnel, and then supplies. Supplies is kind of the biggest. Let me go back. Supplies was kind of the biggest movement in that single category, just with buying things and finding that costs are going up. It's ridiculous, but I'm not saying anything nobody else has experienced. I got the joke. Yeah, I got it. All right. Also, revenues went, on the net, revenues went up. It looks like they went down over here, but that's because the way that we account for it, we have shifted some funds to different capital projects funds, as well as So this really is what tells the story. If this number goes down, what's coming out of the general fund balance. You remember with this current fiscal year's budget, our general fund balance is getting close to the limit. And so we're using this budget to shift money into what you and I could call a savings account, a capital projects account, because we know we have a buildings and ground shop and a cemetery shop and other facilities that we have to build. So we'll move some of that money from there and save for those projects.
So the limit is 35%, is that
Correct.
right? What dollar amount does that equate to?
Jordan?
Any idea?
I think about 12 million.
About 12, yeah.
Just curious what
Yeah.
dollar amount they limit the cities to.
Yeah. So of course, our limit is different than Woodland Hills because their budget is, significantly
So
smaller than ours.
35% of your total
Of your
budget.
general fund.
General fund budget, okay.
And so it changes every year, as the general fund either goes up or down. That limit also goes slightly up or down percentage-wise with it. Our target is to be right at around that 30% mark because that gives us the ability to, maybe we, at the end of this fiscal year, so you can see, we've, as of, certainly by the end of May, but as of a few days into June, we've only spent $29.6 million. That's not the right one. We've only spent $29.6 million as of, let's say, today, and the budget is 33.8. And so there will be a couple of $1 million that we have unspent as well. That will fall into the fund balance. And if we're at that 30 mark, if we target that 30 mark, then we'll never go over the 35. And if we go over the 35, then we get a nice letter from the state auditor that says you have too much there. And so we try to balance that out. Enterprise funds, this just kind of highlights some of the category changes. I think I did a combination here. So the end budget for all general fund and enterprise funds is about $153 million. Again, we won't spend it all. As you can see, we aren't going to spend $45 million between now and 8 days from now. And so really, we're trying to make this better and better still. And we're getting, like I said, our processes are getting more sophisticated. Jordan's really doing a great job as he's coming in learning. Great set of fresh eyes as he asks a lot of questions. Why do we do it this way? How do we do? And he's helping to bring other ways into doing what we do. And he learned from Kent how to do everything, and he's now taking over and adding his own take on things. I don't want to bore you with a whole lot, so any questions or anything specifically you want to touch on in terms of maybe a department, division, expense line, or anything at all with this revision?
When something's zero for so long, like golf merchandise, why have it?
Yeah, we're getting rid of, I think that's one we're getting rid of, right? Oh, that's in the general, that's in the, so, great question. This is in the enterprise funds, but it's a line in our budget. This drives Chris Thompson nuts because it's a number, and I don't remember what the number is, 85, 84, somewhere in there. But so it shows up as a budget category, but there is no golf merchandise in the electric fund or the water fund. But it has to show up because it's in the GL. It's in the general ledger that way.
Oh, gotcha.
But I hope Chris isn't watching because he'd be like, I'm on Brandon's camp with this one.
I would be on Brandon's cap.
It'd be something like that.
Something like that. But
Yeah.
anyway, just
You got a surfboard.
now he's not gonna watch.
No, he's
because
definitely not gonna watch.
Turn it off.
He's offended.
Yep.
Public hearing? You want a motion?
Thank you, Seth. Yep, I would entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Motion made by Councilman Gordon and seconded by Councilwoman Beck to go into public hearing for fiscal year 2022, budget revision number 4. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
We're in public hearing for this item. Anybody from the public that wants to speak to the budget revision? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck, seconded by Councilman Gordon to go out of public hearing. All in favor say yes.
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 We are out of public hearing. Any further discussion up here? Okay,
I move to approve ordinance fiscal year budget 2022 revision 4.
Second.
motion made by Councilwoman Beck, seconded by Councilman Euler, to approve ordinance fiscal year 2022 budget revision number 4. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
That is approved. That passes. I made a mistake again. We didn't need a roll call vote to go into public hearing.
Yeah, it said it did.
Well, did we? We don't need one. I
It's-
think
oh,
I
it just
think
says
I
it on
misread
here.
that, yeah. I am, strike 3 and they're sending me home, so I got,
No,
I better
don't
clean
be.
it up.
It says it on there.
Better clean it up. All right, let's get to item B, and we'll have Dave Anderson talk to us about the Hallam General Plan Amendment.
If you keep messing up, we'll have Mayor Hallam come up here and take your spot.
Mayor Hallam would know how to do this.
He would, I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Didn't have the notes like we had either right now.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a scaled-back version of something that was presented a few years ago. The subject property in this case is located at the corner of 700 South and Spanish Fork Parkway on the northwest corner there. I think this next image might better illustrate what we're talking about. So currently, the city's general plan, which is basically a blueprint for future land uses, the map of the general plan looks like this. This particular color designates this area as estate density residential, which is some 2 homes per acre. And the proposal simply would have a portion of this area change from that estate density residential designation to a commercial designation. It's that simple, really. Now, as is the case with all of the designations that are represented by the land use map of the general plan, we don't have a perfectly clear crystal ball that lets us know what precisely will work best at some point in time, most often at some point in the future. So with that in mind, the map has been designed to allow for some flexibility so that as people come ultimately to you with zone change requests, there is some latitude that you have to work with in terms of deciding whether or not, for example, in this particular case, on this corner, it makes sense that 10 acres be designated, rather I would say ultimately zoned commercial for commercial development, or 15 or 20 or 25. But this particular map is intended to convey the idea that it might be 15 acres, it might be 25 acres, might be a little bit more, might be a little bit less. More specifically, just to try to put that into some context, if, for example, one big box grocer, let's just say, were to want to locate on this corner, they probably would want about 10 acres for the grocery store, for parking, probably for some other ancillary types of uses like retail uses, maybe out on some out parcel pads and that type of a thing. So that would probably be 10 acres. If there were 2 such uses that were to come along and want to locate there, then they probably would need something closer, I guess, like to 20. If maybe it was a home improvement user, grocer, same kind of other combination of maybe some office uses and the like. And we don't have any idea as to what ultimately the market might support here, ultimately what a landowner might want to sell, and what retailers ultimately would want to buy or to lease and that type of a thing. Which is when I also want to say that this is not being made with any particular proposal in mind at this point in time. The city has not been contacted by any brokers or retailers that have a specific interest in developing this site. This is the result of us working with the property owner to try to come up with the best model for future development. Really, that's where we're at. With that in mind, this is a legitimate proposal. I've had an opportunity in the last couple of weeks. For example, 2 weeks ago, we hosted some retail brokers. We were able to take them around town. They looked at a number of different sites. And for all of the reasons that we typically would hear, that people believe retail can be supported, access, visibility, and overall traffic, they believe that this site, likely at some point in the future, will be the home of some type of retail project. It's anybody's guess, like I'm trying to explain, as to exactly what that looks like. And we certainly don't know when that will happen. But again, I absolutely believe this is a very legitimate proposal. I think it's in the best interest of the city to preserve sites like this for these types of uses. So it's very easy for me to support that change from this perspective, or I should say that perspective, trying really to look out for what looks to be most beneficial for not just residents of the neighborhood in terms of providing services closer to where they live, exactly as it's worked with the neighborhood Walmart on the other side of US Highway 6, but also providing the city with an opportunity to capture as much commerce within the community as we possibly can. I think this accomplishes both of those goals, at least potentially, and I think that was the sentiment of both the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission as they recommended that this proposal be approved, and that's where we're at.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave before we go into public hearing?
Mayor, I have one.
Okay.
What's the blue, Dave?
That is mixed use. So that would, that particular designation allows for a number of different zoning districts, including the same ones that would be allowed in the red, the straight commercial. For example, our commercial 1 designation, our commercial 2 designation, commercial office designation. And in addition to that, it would allow for different residential designations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing for item B.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle and seconded by Councilman Gordon to go into public hearing for item B. All in favor, say aye. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for the Hallam General Plan Amendment. Anybody from the public that wants to come speak to this?
Hi, my name's August Bigelow. I live in that neighborhood that's right adjacent to this. I kind of just want to emphasize, like, I've lived here for like 12 years. I'm in favor of having this kind of thing here, just where there's nothing over here but houses. You can't walk to anything over here. Not until the Walmart neighborhood market showed up was there any reason to basically get out of your house on your feet. The holiday oil doesn't help me too much unless I want to drink, but having any kind of walkable person scale business here is a huge thing in my mind. I would love to be able to just walk out and go somewhere from my house rather than having to drive somewhere. Some other people, like on our neighborhood Facebook, and myself included, wondered about like scale of it. It's like something like a grocery store works obviously greater than like a bunch of other huge, like a dentist office isn't going to help me much there. But I know that like you guys can't control that, we can't control that. But the idea of having some retail commercial stuff, at least from my personal perspective, I mean, is good because it could literally benefit me. Obviously the city, tax dollars, that kind of thing. But I want to be able to walk out of my house and go somewhere and walk back and enjoy my neighbors, the place that I live, and things like that. So I just wanted to emphasize, like, I'm there and I like this kind of idea. So yeah, and that's it.
Thank you.
August.
Sometimes you don't just go to the holiday just to smell the popcorn. That's sometimes I go in there. Okay, anybody else from the public? Mayor?
That was a long time ago.
Mayor, that was when I was, I think, in 7th or 8th grade. And you were my teacher out in the trailers at Spanish Fork Junior
That was about 39 years ago.
It was not!
I was in the trailers.
Stacy.
I know, yeah.
39 years, so. Yeah, that was a long time
Well,
ago.
my gosh, you might be right. I was like, no, I graduated 33, okay, we're,
Better quit.
For some of our newer residents, Mayor, you've taught school here for 40 years, going on 40 years. And biology, I know, is one thing you taught, but you're a farmer and an ag guy all your life too. But tell some of the newer people what you taught in school.
Oh.
Everything.
Yeah, everything. But biology, and then I work for the district with the ag welding programs right now, so it's good. Been the best year I've had in 39 years. of
Ooh.
teaching, so.
Now that you got out of the kids area?
No, I have the kids. I love the kids. I have ninth graders in biology, and this group of kids this year is the best group I've ever had.
Really?
That's
awesome.
So they were just almost like having my own kids come there every day, so.
Still got turkeys.
I just got word before I came here that because of the avian virus that they're not going
Do
to
that.
sell us poults this year.
Okay.
I've got 19 hens left over from last year down there that weigh about 40 pounds, and if you'd like to come get some of those.
I may do that. 40-pound turkey, I'm not sure I could get that in the oven. Might have to get a spigot and turn it.
You can put it on your Traeger.
Okay.
Is your classroom still ag stuff on the wall and
It
everything, and
is.
tractor
It's
seats
a
and?
museum.
My son had you last year and he loved you. Your
Yeah,
class
he-
was great.
Yeah, yeah. And I told actually, last year and this year, I thought from the kids last year, just awesome kids, and yours was one of them. And then this year, those 2 years,
Good years.
they
That's
are.
good.
They're just, we have really good kids in Spanish Fork, I guess what I'm saying. Really
That's
good.
good to hear.
It's good to hear.
I was with a handful of ninth graders for 4 days last week, and 5 of them had Mr. Hallam as a biology teacher. So knowing Mr. Hallam myself, I, probably shouldn't have pried as much as I did, but basically asked him, "What did you think?" And it was unanimous. All 5 of them, best teacher of the year, best class of the year.
Really?
So I think the feeling is mutual, and
Yeah.
I was really happy to hear that.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel schools should be inviting, and you should have fun, you should learn, but kids should want to be there, they should want to come to class, and if you can make it like that, they learn. So, it's kind of my philosophy, so.
Well, sorry, we didn't have a public
But,
meeting to
all right,
eulogize
the
you,
only
you
thing-
know. but
I wanted to
Appreciate
know
you being here.
if all these campaign signs could be considered graffiti.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, yes, agreed.
That's absolutely true. Yes.
A bill introduced today for at least the ones on the public right of way, that the legislature's gonna discuss it and get some of them so they can't be on overpasses in
Right,
different places.
anyway.
Yeah.
Pull that picture out. I'll give you the same spill I gave you last year, not to make this lengthy, but get that so we go up to the little acorn up there.
Give me just a second, and I'll pull up our map.
I forgot how to use this thing.
There's a pointer
Be
right
right.
there below you, Jay.
If you put that one down, Mayor, and grab
Oh,
Yeah,
this
there
one,
you go.
okay.
That one will be better.
That'll ruin your slideshow, that, oh.
I'm gonna go up.
Yeah, go in a little closer. Okay, so when we brought this in 6 years ago, we basically came in with the same ideas that we have right now on growth and what's left and what's available up there. This wasn't here. This wasn't here. We'd come in with this section right here as growth for commercial as this build out up in here. And you've all driven up there, you know what's going on. This is all, there's 500 units going here, another 100 and something here, another, I think almost 200 platted in here. So this is all gone. We're at the end of Spanish Fork City right here. This is 40 acres of John Stewart's. He'll farm that till he dies. This is the girls' home. These are 5-acre plots here. Doug, anyway, he's got some ground back in here behind the tracks. But honestly, it's gone. We're gone up on the east end. And so the frustration, and I'm sure you have it the same way, we have to drive clear down into town, and it's a traffic nightmare to get in and out of there to get some things. And so this, if the railroad does go away, this is an intersection problem here because of the height of the railroad. That could be flattened and make this more approachable, but other than that, you know, to get in and out of this area right here, that's all we have left. Up in here, and you probably know this, there's 2,400 homes plotted out up in here, and they're going to town up in there. And they're either gonna go all the way into Springville down this way, or they're gonna come this way. And if some of that can be trapped right in here, it's sales tax revenue to the city. We don't, and I made this comment in planning and zoning, we don't have a client there. We had someone look at it 6 years ago. But I think as this all fills in, there's gonna be a demand for some neighborhood services up in there, so you don't have to, as this gentleman, and I appreciate your comments, don't have to drive clear down into that, down there. So, in the planning meeting, Dave mentioned you're gonna look at the overall general plan, and honestly, and I'll put the spill in now, I think you need to look at all of this into that general plan, because I think it's gonna take that down the road as things come about, up there. So that's my little spill on that. I do have one comment, if I can share it right now. I know this is in open comments. If somebody else wants to talk, or I'll share it with you now, just on a thing I observed on the community. I was in Australia the last 2 weeks. 2 years ago, I was in New Zealand for a week. And I know you've probably thought about this, but they've done away with plastic sacks. You have to take your own things to the stores to get your goods. And I noticed it again, I just got home yesterday, that the roads are clean, the streets are clean, and the only thing I can contribute it to is there aren't all of those blowing plastic sacks going everywhere. And they have, as soon as you get out of the commercial areas there, I mean, the streets were clean, and I was in Melbourne, and there's 5 million people there, but yet the streets were clean, there wasn't stuff blown, piled. As soon as you get out of town, it's all agricultural, they all got barbed wire fences that are 5 strands, there was nothing clean on any of that. It was just clean. And I know it's probably a PR thing when you switch to that. Hawaii's done that. I know there's individual cities that have done that, but I just would urge you to look into that as far as trying to police or patrol that kind of issue. When you see that stuff all over the place, it doesn't put a nice face, I don't think, on Spanish Fork City. And just to give you an example, if you go up to the gas station there to the right by our property right there, look across the street on my ditch bank, and it's just covered with all kinds of that stuff. We have to deal with in the ag community, blows into the field, goes into the hay bales, customers aren't happy, but I would strongly recommend you study that and look at that as a possibility. I know it takes some time to change, and maybe talk to some other communities that have done that, but I really think it would help change that in our community. I was just so impressed with what I saw there and saw in New Zealand. There just isn't. It's just tight. And I think that's a contributor. Thank you.
Thanks, come back here, Merrill. Come back here for just, I have a couple of questions. So on your ground right here.
Here, Chad.
Works. How many acres are right here?
Oh, that's
That
about
corner
6.
piece. And this piece here together?
About another 6.
So there's about 12 acres right here on the corner. And then what's these 2 pieces
So
here?
that's 10 and 10 there.
So there's 20 here. And so what do you prefer? Do you have a preference here?
Well, in planning, when it came to planning, you know, yeah, I'd like to put the whole thing in there, but I think if you look at that in the general plan, you probably ought to. They brought in some pictures in planning meeting, and I can't remember the store over in Orem or somewhere. Target. Okay. Big homes backed right into these areas right there. Big, nice homes. It wasn't like going from the transition of, you know, a residential home to some apartments to high-density apartments and then to this. And I think it's all how you plan all that out. I'd like to see, you know, for my benefit, to have some small shopping areas there, you know, I threw that out, I'd like to see a Home Depot in there. And that may be down the road, but, you know, with that, you get other smaller retailers, food sources that come in with that type of thing. That all of this area could feed into right here, and it's gonna draw a whole bunch of Mapleton up there. They've got, let me see, pull that map down this way. Well, no, yeah, so we can see over into Mapleton over here. Okay, now I gotta get my bearings straight again. There's Maple Mountain, okay, so you come up here. Where's the Maverick? It must be clear up here.
Maverick's right there.
Yep.
Oh, right here, okay. So, right here, Ripley's at one time owned this, they may still do. They may get a grocery store there. This is all 2.5 acre lots. Frank Nelson will farm this till he dies and all of this. The mayor bought this little corner, is putting something there, but there's just no commercial along there, and that's the way they like it, and that's fine, but let's send all this down here. They're certainly not going to drive, I don't think, clear down to the freeway in Springville if there's something up here that they can go to and fulfill those needs. And we all know it's coming, so anyway, that's kind of around about your question, Chad.
Okay,
but yeah, we prefer to have all of that in that plan, but you know, you start somewhere, I guess. But like I said, if you're going to look at this in a few months, I think you ought to look at that all, because that's the only thing that's left right there. Sure. That's it in that area.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay Merrill. Appreciate it. Okay, anybody else from the public like to speak to this item?
Motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilman Argyle to go out of public hearing. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
We're out of public hearing. Any further discussions up here about this amendment?
Dave, come hither.
I'll go.
Go ahead, Shane.
All right. I can never tell if you can hear me. I can't see your faces. Terrible. I think big picture wise, I think this gives industry, community, signals our intent to have commercial in this area. You know me, I don't like the one-off things. And I'm sure Dave is like, he's going to say, don't one-off this. But that's what I'm going to say. With the exception of it gives the community a chance to say, for us to say, we intend to have commercial here. When we evaluate the general plan and the bigger picture, we can talk more about the extent of it. But in the short term, I like this. I think the former mayor is correct. I think it is the chance to get something commercial on the east side of our community. I appreciate Mr. Bigelow speaking on behalf of the community and talking about walking to something and avoid getting his car. So for all those reasons, I'm very supportive of it. However, I do want to look at it from a bigger perspective, bigger picture in the future.
Thank you, Councilman Marshall. Councilman Argyle.
So I guess that's my question, Dave. So obviously what Jay Merrill says, we all know too true because we've passed all them. But this thing tonight, do we want to do a small piece of it so that it opens it up for something? I mean, you've got 15 to 25 acres there, and there's 12 acres right here, he said. Jay Merrill, do we want to do 12? I mean, I guess I need some counsel. Obviously, if you're talking a store or other things coming in here on the other side of this, I mean, we're seeing it over here. They're coming in here. We're also got a very large residential thing there, so I'm not sure. Did the review committee or commission recommend anything particular?
We had a similar conversation in the development review committee meeting about whether it was appropriate just to focus on this corner for now, or whether maybe we should tinker with the mixed-use designations that are right there as well. Maybe look at some of the Olson property on the other side of 7th South. And I can't remember exactly what all of the comments were that came from that or sentiments, but the most important ones for me, kind of my takeaways, were that right now we're working with this property owner here. This is their proposal to impact their property, and it's an appropriate change, in our opinion, to make at this time. So that, coupled with the idea that sometime, and maybe not the next couple of months, but maybe the next several months, we're going to be reviewing things on a broader scale. We felt like this was the appropriate step to take now.
Get started.
Is that, I mean, for others?
Yeah, just adding a second voice to what was in the DRC. Everything you said is how I remembered as well, and we can remember some of the discussions that we had about how big of an area we were taking a handful of years ago, and that might be too much. And this gives us everything that Dave said earlier. It gives you the ability to say, this, we do intend for commercial here, and I like how this image crosses over property lines. And so, you know, as in this case, as Mr. Hallam potentially sells some ground for development in the future, he's going to sell what he wants, you know, to the builder or the developer for what they want. And it's going to be, their desires are going to line up. And chances are he's going to say, well, I don't want to give anything on the other side of this ditch because it won't make it so I can't farm it. So you got to stay here. Or he's going to say, I want to sell the whole thing, right? And so then who comes in will probably drive to you what you're going to do. But this signals, as it crosses over property lines and everything, it tells you and the world, this isn't a hard and fast line. It can be a little bit here to the north. It can be a little bit here to the east. And as Dave said, it could be smaller. We just know that in this area, we want to have commercial. And I love that we've chosen the commercial designation here and not the mixed use, because we're sending a clear signal, we want commercial. We don't want some of the other uses that can be a part of that mixed use here. We want commercial.
Okay.
I like it. That's all. I like it.
Okay, so how many acres is this, Jay Merrill?
That's 20.
And 12 to here, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, about that.
About 12. Is this the Neville property?
No, it's farther east.
So it's farther.
Yeah, see,
Okay.
everything east of that has all been platted. Salisbury,
Yeah.
got that all platted, and then there's a school site, that's where we've got the animal lab just east of there.
Oh, okay, that's their property where you're at right there. Okay.
And I think, again, the idea is, you know, the city's just saying this is an area we think, and we appreciate you're willing to do this, and I think as time changes, I personally feel that there's gonna be more of that area, even Olson. We thought with the red designated there, that would kind of lend or tend to have the Olson property south of there, be able to tie into that too. But again, we're not advertising it, we're not trying to market it, but I think down the road, there's gonna be some desire by the community to have that kind of
So
things up in there, so.
what if we do that 12 acres, Dave, that's on that corner? As a start.
Chad, mentally, he's just having an OCD moment. And when you farm those plots, he can't
get past the plots.
He can't take the little arch.
Well, I think this is just
Right,
a change
Chad?
in general plan. If you're gonna actually zone that, you'd
He's
have
OCD, guys.
He's probably worried that something's buried.
I've watched this guy for a lot of
No,
years.
there's not.
Open his M&Ms over here, guys, and he separates the colors. I'm
Okay,
just
so
Can I explain one
we
thing?
don't want to break fence lines here, right? Right, Jay Merrill? I'm not. I don't want to be crossing lines.
No, and it does, and that's how
That's how it works.
He's wiping out my ditch.
Yeah.
Yep, see?
So I think
Now you're saying
when
it.
we talk to the findings of this, and you go through findings 1 through 4, with the proposal of the appropriate size for the area, well, the general plan, to look at this and look at the general plan amendment, DRC, Planning Commission, and now coming to us, says this current proposal is for the appropriate size. If somebody comes in here and says, hey, we need this much, or we need down closer to the highway, Well, that's going to take a different look from us and say, oh, maybe that wasn't the appropriate size. Maybe we should start looking at that. But I think this does the clear indicating work of
And-
we're open for business there, and the
And when
landowner's open for
Dave's
business.
driving around town with a future possible tenant, right?
Yeah.
Those are conversations that you have. And then if, Cabela's is in here going, wait, we need 15, or, who knows? Just saying, those things all dictate, right?
And it's a changing world, retail.
Right.
Stores that were 150,000 square feet, let's say 7 or 8 years ago, are now 135,000 square feet. They've scaled back by 15,000 square feet, and there's a commiserate drawdown as to the amount of parking that they want and different things like that. And now there's actually a suggestion that some of that's going to maybe reverse itself again for different reasons. So I just say that predicting exactly what somebody's going to come along and offer to purchase by way of an exact dimension, we would totally be kidding ourselves if we thought that we were smart enough to do that at this point in time.
And one more point to my comment too, is that a recent law in Utah that we cannot compete with sales tax, right? And so we're not gonna offer an incentive to any business anymore after July 1st, right?
Right.
It's illegal. And so as a city, we can't do that. And so I think that'll be interesting as now we're talking about really location, right?
100%.
We're not back in the year 2000 where Springville and Spanish are fighting over a Walmart, right? And Springville gets the Walmart. Those days are gone. And that'll be interesting as people are really dialing in their business as they're looking at locations. So anyway, another point I wanted to make.
You didn't answer my question, but thanks, Dave.
Hopefully I get a good effort at least.
Okay.
So.
Is there more?
Anything else over here?
I'm ready.
I think anybody that's going to entertain reading this motion, read the 4 findings. They're not too long. Just read the 4 findings, since this is amending 15 to 25 acres on the northeast corner of 700 South and Spanish Fork Parkway.
Yeah, so is that how I want to do it?
Yeah,
Just
so
like that.
So real quick, sorry, Chad, before you make that,
Okay?
and Dave, I think this probably should come up when we do discuss general plan changes. And Seth mentioned it earlier about how he likes that we're designating this specifically for commercial. So, and I think Shauna mentioned to me, Planning Commission talked about the property across the street, how it's mixed use now. Probably be a good idea to, again, review all of our mixed use. Are they located near commercial? Does it make sense if that's what we want is commercial, that we designate it as commercial? So, something.
That's on the radar, for sure. I appreciate that.
Great.
Okay, if there's no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve property located at 700 South Spanish Fork Parkway. Changing the zone to commercial, right?
General plan.
General plan
Density. The commercial for some 15 to 25 acres.
to commercial for some 15 to 25 acres. That drives me nuts.
I know.
And then the findings below it. You see those 4 findings?
Yep. That the site potentially suitable for the type of uses that are consistent with the commercial designation, that the proposal may bring needed opportunities for commercial to the neighborhood, that the proposal could help alleviate traffic in other areas of the community, that the proposal is appropriate size for the area.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle and seconded by Councilman Gordon. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
That passes.
Jay Merrill. Most of the council, I'm older, the older ones, we go away really quick. You need to get in contact with me and we need to get your fence done. Okay? Okay. We need to get that, because we forget things really easy.
Stacy, I taught the portable for 6 years, so that could have been just 31 years.
you some slack.
Yeah, that's sweet.
It's good.
I was,
39. 39.
no, because I did a little bit more math and I'm going to go right in the middle with you.
Nice.
Thanks, Mary Ellen, for coming. Appreciate it. Good to see you. All right, takes us to item number 10, new business, personnel policy changes, updates to fire, EMS, schedule, and leave time accrual. Is someone, Tyler, speaking to this?
So as you may know, we recently hired some of our first full-time fire and EMS employees. And as a result, we now need to change our personnel policy manual so that they can accrue leave time in a way that is a little bit different from the way that other employees accrue it, simply because of their schedule. So they work 48 hours straight, and then they're off for 96 hours. So a normal employee works about 2,080 hours a year as a full-time employee. A full-time paramedic will work 2,912 hours, so about 30% more hours than a regular employee because of the way that their shifts are set up. So as a result, we need to update our personnel policy manual so that they can accrue leave time as well. There are some numbers that we may come back to you with next month and tweak just a little bit, but so that we can start employing these employees, this is what we'd recommend those accrual rates to be.
I imagine this
Perfect.
mirrors other cities with, right? That's where we.
That's a great question, Brandon. So what we did is we actually surveyed other cities to see how they came up with their leave accrual for their employees, and we mimicked a couple of their plans. And they also have a way that they calculate it. I think it's in an industry. I don't know if it's called I don't know if I'd call it a standard, but a common practice. And so we mimicked that as we calculated some of these rates.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah.
I assume if our new fire chief wasn't okay with it, he'd let us know that it wasn't good.
It was great. We worked hard together with HR and Tyler's group, and we feel like this is a pretty solid plan going forward for the policy and procedure manual.
Perfect. Okay.
I moved.
Any questions?
Oh, sorry.
Nope. Go ahead.
My bad.
You're good.
Should have let you ask that first. Everybody good?
Yep.
I move to approve personnel policy changes, updates to fire and EMS schedule, and leave time accrual.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilman Euler for this item. Roll call vote, Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilman Argyle.
Aye. Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Gordon.
Yes.
That passes. Okay, item B. Jared, this is the Utah Department of Transportation Cooperative Agreement, 300 West and 400 North Roundabout.
Just by the way, Jared, you look really nice.
Well, thank you.
That's wearing a tie. It's a jacket.
So what you have before you is the cooperative agreement with UDOT for the 300 West, 400 North Roundabout. We've been working with UDOT to update our transportation master plan with the north corridors. They've agreed that this will help alleviate traffic on Main Street to get this corridor on 300 West built. In order to do that, we need to put a traffic or a roundabout or a traffic signal. We feel a roundabout will work a lot better. So this agreement, and UDOT's agreed to pay $400,000 of that roundabout, and that's what this agreement is. We're currently designing the roundabout. Property acquisition will take place over the next 6 months, if any, and construction is planned to begin after school.
We're gonna build this city.
The city will build it, and UDOT will reimburse us their share.
What's the cost of it total, do you know? Yeah.
Depending on property acquisition, you're looking anywhere from $800,000 to $1.1 million. So.
Okay.
Don't know if you have any-
Any other questions? Kind of a angled one.
Yeah. Before we really talk to the property owners, we didn't want to really show what we're doing. We've got 3 or 4 different concepts on which way to go with it, but we still have to contact the property owners.
Who's riding with Chad in a 16-wheeler to go through it?
Jared.
Byron.
I can do it. Big, long trailer.
I'll take you.
Okay.
Byron will know what to do with it.
Okay.
Any
other
questions on that one?
questions for Jared on this one? If not, would entertain a motion.
Come on, Jared needs some questions. Not just compliments on his.
I
We're
thought
tied.
that the
Let's fire away.
resident road guy's on
Well,
horn.
Come on.
I'll ask one.
Do I need to zoom out so you can see better? Go ahead.
I'll ask a question while you guys are thinking. Ready?
Go ahead, yep.
Jared, so I'm assuming you negotiated this with UDOT in saying that a signal would cost about 400 grand. So they're putting that much, we contribute the rest to make it a roundabout, correct?
That's, yep, exactly correct.
Good, I got one right. Is that 400,000 using costs today or a year ago costs?
It's off the concept we put together this year. So, I mean, it changes I want to say every 3 months with the way construction is, but it was done off the concepts this year.
All right, so you're comfortable that it reflects an accurate estimate today then?
Yeah, we used to estimate signals at 250.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've
All
gone
right.
up quite a bit.
Thank you.
Yep.
If everyone's ready, I move to approve the Utah Department of Transportation Cooperative Agreement 300 West, 4th North Roundabout.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck and seconded by Councilman Euler to approve this item. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Marshall,
Yes.
Councilman Euler,
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Councilman Argyle.
Yes.
That passes. Item C, you got item C too?
Yep, I got the next 2.
Wasatch Pallet Improvement Cost 2022.
So as you're aware, we've helped relocate Wasatch Pallet from the old sugar beet factory down here on the west end of town to the north end of town on 1000 North. Some costs have incurred over the improvements of that area, and this agreement is to help Wasatch Pallet with them costs, which the city will recover that money through corridor preservation funds once we get I-15, or the interstate I-15 Center Street interchange. So, sorry. These costs include the Depot Road improvements, the 1000 North improvements, the pioneering agreements with all the developers in that area that put the improvements in. There will be some pioneering agreements with that, and some impact fees will be reimbursed for that. And then the railroad spur itself. So I don't know if you have any questions, but that's what this is for, is to cover all them costs.
Any questions for Jared on this? This is a question we all get. Again, Center Street and I-15, this is a long time coming, public-private partnership, if you will, with the company that was out there. We get questions about traffic up in Canyon Creek that we talked about earlier. The next question, or the first question we get, is traffic on Main Street. So this will help traffic on Main Street. This is part of the package that makes
This is-
that
Yeah,
work.
probably the first step.
Yeah.
So in order to build the interchange on Center Street, we got to move the railroad spur. It comes off of Center Street, up Center Street, and down to the Wasatch Pallet. So we've already actually built the spur for Wasatch Pallet before they moved their business. Now they're moving their business, and then we'll remove the spur when we build the interchange.
So an email or text that says, what are we doing about traffic on Main Street? We can say, well, we took a step today.
Yeah. We're actually going to put the, or UDOT, I should say, Darren here, he didn't bring this up, but they plan on putting the Center Street environmental out this July.
Oh, good.
That's actually really the first step at the interchange, so.
Good. All right. Anything else? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve Wasatch Pallet Improvement Cost 2022.
Second?
Motion made by Councilman Argyle and seconded by Councilman Gordon. Roll call vote, Councilman Marshall,
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Gordon.
Yes.
Councilman Argyle,
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Item C passes. Item D, Bradford Commercial Leasing, Mountain Land Supply Cross Access Agreement.
So this one's kind of unique. We don't usually sign or get involved with cross-access agreements. It's between two property owners. So Active Auto is looking to put an auto sale store here. And if you can envision, this is 3450 East that goes out by the proposed transfer station, and this is Main Street. So Mountain Land Supply is here, and what we've asked is the two businesses share an access, combine their access and use it as one, so they have a cross-access easement. What Mountain Land Supply and Bradford Commercial have asked is if this access gets too congested from this traffic, that we allow and construct an access to the south of their site. What we don't want is we want to limit the access to this intersection. So Active Autos agreed to not have an access onto Main Street or 3450 East to share this access, but that encumbers Mountain Land Supply's property. So we've agreed that, the city's agreed in this agreement that we will allow a second access further to the south for just Mountain Land if that's needed. So, simple as that, but.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for Jared?
Who's going to determine that?
It's determined, we've agreed that it's determined by Mountain Land or Burt. If they deem it necessary, then we'll do it. We just don't, they want it now. And we're like, why construct it now? We don't think it's going to be an issue. I really think this access is going to work for both businesses. So why spend the expense to put this access in that we don't see that's needed? But to kind of one of their
They're
conditions
going to
was-
pay for it anyway. We're just going to allow them to do it, right?
We said we'd pay for it.
Oh,
So this is for us to pay for it and allow it.
okay.
So this, if we were to, if they required it now, we would require it as a part of this development to be put in. And this development doesn't want to, if they're going to pay for an access, they want to put it on their own property. So this is a request from the engineering division to limit access to Main Street, to make it safer. All the businesses are willing to do it. Our part is that if this access actually fails, the city will step in, build this access, and we would rather have this access here than the Active Auto.
Close
having access
because
to
of the
individual.
transfer station.
Jared, I'm comfortable with this concept, but probably have a similar discomfort as maybe some of the council members that there really is no check that keeps them from just saying tomorrow, do it. So is there any way that we can have anything in the agreement? Any comfort level from them to say as
Well, they
determined
really,
after
they
traffic?
really wanted it today.
I know they want it today, and I don't necessarily want us to put it in today, right?
Mhm.
They don't need it today based on their own
Desire.
traffic, right? And so auto dealers don't really generate a whole lot of traffic. People shop online.
Right.
A
A lot of this is truck traffic, but once we get 3450 East built, they've actually paid for two accesses to the back of their store. And that's why I really don't think it's ever going to
Right.
happen. And that's.
So anyways, what I don't want is for them to,
Just
to exercise that option unnecessarily. So is there a check or balance that we could put into this contract that would make it so that it's not just so easily triggered? Again, I'm comfortable with the concept, certainly when it's needed, but because I say it's needed isn't really the comfort level that I think we
I think we could reword it that if the property owner comes to the city, and the city agrees, like we would investigate it, that we'd both have to come to agree to it. I don't know if there's a certain amount of traffic that, or an ADT that you'd put on it.
I concur. I don't think we want to get to
so
that. We're not qualified. Well, I am as a traffic engineer, but you.
Wait a second.
I like how you're listening to this meeting, Shane.
But my comfort level, so Mountain Land is very busy in the morning at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning when they first open up because everybody's hitting them to get stuff.
They serve coffee?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
and parts. My other comfort level is the one we did south end of town on Volunteer Drive. Did not work, does not work.
Well, that's a
Dugout.
different design of a shared access too. That has 2 points at the road. This access only has 1 point at the road, and they actually share
But it-
this only point.
Okay.
The one on the south end of town
Are you
actually
talking at
has-
the gas station? Is that what you're talking
Yes.
about?
The
Oh,
dugout
yeah, yeah. No,
comes
no, that's,
right.
that's not a good example.
Yeah, that's not a good example.
Yeah.
This will be just like, built exactly like this. 2 parking lots coming in to 1 access.
Okay. And I'm okay if we have that they can do that,
This
that they can build that at second
on
access.
ERC tomorrow, that this cross access has been one of the items holding it up or holding it for
Okay.
approval. I know there's some other things they need to get done, but it is designed and shown like this.
Okay. I'm okay with them calling it myself, but I don't, like you said, if they want it now, they might wait till this
Yeah,
is
when
complete.
I met with them, they said we met standing here, and they made the comment about how much traffic we'd seen just standing here. I'm like, that wasn't, it was like 5 cars. I'm like, that's not considered traffic to me.
Yeah, and
So-
that's not from this, that's not
Right.
a need that we're requiring them to, that's not a burden we're requiring them to have, because that's traffic that's coming already, right? That's not traffic coming to this other store. So, but at the same time, I totally trust Jared's comfort level as he reviews it. If he has somebody studied or whatever, I'm
And
comfortable with
it's-
Jared
it's-
being
It's
the
not
one that says
Mountain
I'm
Land
okay.
that gets requested, it is actually Bradford. So it's not the business owner in the agreement, it is that Bert would have to request it. 'Cause the
Landowner.
agreement is actually with Bradford Commercial Leasing. So I think we can reword it that we were both comfortable. If that's what you'd like, we can reword it that both the city and Bradford Commercial have to agree that this access has become overwhelmed and we move it on. And then that leaves it to more engineering discretion with working with the property owner than him just saying, I
I
want
like
this
that.
done.
I like
Well,
that.
didn't you say it would have to fail? And wouldn't we have to do a study to prove that?
I don't know that we'd have to do a study, but I think that we could take our traffic engineer.
Yeah.
We could go on site. No, we would be able to determine that.
And
I
that's what
think
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Right now, they just say, I want it, and that
They
triggers
just-
the expense.
They think this is
versus
going to
sign.
be this way. I said, well,
Right, we needed some proof.
let's see how it actually is. And I even want to wait, and I've talked them into waiting until we get 3400 East built, which is going to be this year or the next construction season. And their truck traffic will not even be on this road. It will just be mainly for the 2 businesses, and the truck traffic will go on 3400 East. So I think that talking with Bert and working with Bert on this, he's comfortable with the way we've worded it, but I think he'll also be comfortable with that engineering has to agree that the intersection is failed. And I think this is not beyond our capability of determining that.
Jared, help me understand that image a little better, because I'm not quite sure I do. The square right here is the only part that we're talking about, or are we talking about the entire access?
This is, from here to the right is the city's property, so this is the right-of-way. So this is the only part that's encumbered by that easement. This is this property owner is giving this property owner the easement, the access to use this.
And they're asking for it to be widened?
Well, we're asking that the access from this site come to the south, so it'll look just like this, instead of accessing Main Street.
Okay.
So we've got to allow this property access. So this is a request from the city to have them share this
So rather
access.
than them coming in right here.
Their proposed
they're
access
gonna
was right
tear-
here, which is.
They would tear this out and they would turn in right here.
Yep. Their proposal was to have an access here, which is really similar to what we have on the south end of town. And that's what we're trying to avoid,
That makes,
is conflicts on Main Street, have the conflicts outside in the parking lot.
yeah, I understand now, thank you.
These are 2 separate properties, 2 separate owners, correct?
2 separate owners. This one is or giving the access to this one, so.
I like the,
Looking at maybe fixing the language about when and how much that access is gonna be. It looks like there's some typos in section 7 and 8. It refers to a couple of entities that aren't parties to the agreement. If we can fix those while we're at it.
NEBO and CCSC Phase 4. See what he's talking about?
We'll have to we'll just need to remove 7. Yeah. Well, Travis is buying lunch tomorrow.
So in the motion, maybe we're talking about the language being mutually agreed with the owner and the city about that access and about the need for that next access, and then striking item 7 on the agreement.
And if you want to approve it as to, with the approval of engineering, with the concurrence of those two, so that doesn't have to come back with the guidance that you've just given, I think that we can work with that as well.
That was said better.
So moved.
I know, I was just gonna say, who's doing that one?
Tara, you got that?
We're gonna need some help.
Aye.
That wasn't very helpful.
Add striking 7, if you're gonna do that.
Okay. Motion to approve Bradford Commercial Leasing LLC cross-access agreement, striking item 7. And what else do you want to put in?
Subject to approval.
Subject to approval by engineering and legal.
Ooh, very well done. Second.
Motion made by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilwoman Beck. Roll call vote. Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Sorry. Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Passes. Hey, before we go to item E, we've got Chief Hales here with a guest, well, not a guest, just a coworker. But if you'd like to introduce who you have here with us, and we know we got an upcoming swearing in July, so swearing in so you can get sworn at, right?
Mayor and Council, Eddie Hales, Director of Fire and EMS, and I have here our new Deputy Chief, Krista Horting, who started a few weeks ago with us, and she is overseeing our EMS division in the Fire and EMS department. We currently have Brent Jarvis, who is the Deputy Chief overseeing the Fire Division. And so we're super excited to have Krista part of our organization, being a part of our team. She's already helping us make big strides into the future for the betterment of the community for fire and EMS. We're excited to have her here. She comes to us from Weber Fire District, and she has 23 years of experience in the fire and EMS world. And she is very knowledgeable and is also an instructor with the Utah Fire and Rescue Academy. So here you are, Deputy Chief Krista Horting. And do you want to add anything else? Go ahead.
No,
Yes.
that pretty much covers everything, so.
Welcome.
You know, it's been a pleasure being here. This is start of week number 5, and it's been a great 4 weeks. It's been really busy and a couple long days, but I'm really happy to be here and be a part of this city. So it's a great place to work and hopefully to live at soon. So.
So, find her a house.
Yeah, I'm looking for a house, so.
Your horse property.
Yeah.
Oh, not a big ask.
Under 750 preferably. So, you know,
Just a
we're
few
just gonna pay it right up
parameters.
front,
Okay.
right? So, yep, exactly, that's the goal.
Maybe all the realtors that are watching this will.
There you
be-
go.
Thank you, Sue.
Give me a call, yeah, no. So, yep, nope, I'm very excited to be here and be a part of you guys, so thank you very much for giving me this
We're
opportunity.
lucky to have you.
Yeah.
When they were interviewing for the chief position, and they had mentioned how impressed they were, obviously, with both of you, and so we feel lucky to have the best of both worlds, if
Yeah.
you will, in our city. I'll just say that out loud if I can.
And you're
I-
still
I
a ski
agree.
patrolman?
I do ski patrol in the winter, and so it's a little off season right now, so we'll see how everything goes this fall and see if we do it again, or maybe I just relocate to another ski resort and, yep, so get a little skiing in. I do a lot of horseback riding and lots of outdoor stuff, and so fit right in down here. A lot of fun.
Well, welcome to
Welcome,
Spanish Fork.
glad to have
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, I might start
Thank you.
this time.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Chief. Thanks, Deputy Horting. Welcome. Very, very good. Follow that, Seth, with whatever you got going on, because that's some good news there.
Yeah, my pleasure. Let me just say quickly, I wasn't a part of the round of interviews for the deputy chief, but I was given some reports from those interviews that as they asked Krista a handful of questions that Chief Hales and some of the other folks in the room I think one specific question was, how do you keep some of the excitement? And how do you recognize that? Obviously, I'm butchering it because I wasn't there, but Krista had just a thoughtful moment, and she gave an idea of some ways that you could harness the excitement from the new EMTs and take some of what they do and the accomplishments through their time and recognize it in, I don't know how exactly she said it, but it was very eloquent. And Kim Hollis, she was sitting in the room, said it was kind of fun to watch all these seasoned individuals taking notes, saying that is a great idea. And you know, we've got, that's the kind of thought and caliber that we have in Chief Hoarding as well. So we're excited for her and of course, grateful for what Eddie's doing too. It's the most wonderful time of the year, budget season.
I thought that was next month or yesterday. You're getting them mixed up.
Seems like the next 3 are.
Every month, there's something great, isn't there?
You got your guy right here.
So we're going to talk about a handful of budget things, and we're going to just let Jordan kind of tear into property tax and truth and taxation and all this good stuff. And then we'll talk specifically about some challenges and upcoming opportunities that we have. So just sit back. If you want some extra food or whatever, we'll be maybe 2.5 hours on this good stuff.
2.5 hours, Jordan. Timer starts now.
I think even I would fall asleep with that. Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the certified tax rate. The next item on the agenda is to approve the budget. And in order to approve the budget, you have to actually set a property tax rate. So you can't approve the budget until we set a property tax rate. So we're going to talk about what certified tax rate is. All right. So we give a little context into property tax. So if it's residents that pay property tax here in town, where does your property tax go? It goes to these entities, to the city, school district, the county, charter schools, and the Water Conservancy District. And here is how that pie is split up, with the majority share going to the school district, 10% or so going to the city, and about that going to the county, and then a little bit going to the Water Conservancy District. So I think I've shown that chart in the last couple months as well. So each of these entities have a separate tax rate. You take that tax rate and times it by the taxable value. And I emphasize taxable value of the property, because residents have a discount for primary residents where they only pay tax on 55% of their value. Other not residents that aren't primary residents, they pay the full 100%. And other non-residential properties, they pay 100% as well. All right, so how's my bill calculated? Take that taxable property value times the tax rate, and that gives you your property tax bill. You have multiple tax rates because you have multiple entities that you're paying tax to. So for the school district, for this example, they'd be getting $1,600 of the $2,075, right? So you got to do a little bit of math to get the total bill. I think it's important to note that when you say property tax rate or property tax bill, which entities bill and rate you're talking about, right? Because somebody might be referring to this total rate that you're paying, and somebody else might be thinking, oh, just the city portion or whatever. Mm-hmm. All right. And then I've already talked about that discount that you get for primary residents. All right. Who determines the property tax rates for each of these entities? It's the governing body. So for the city, it's all of you. For the school district, it's the governing body for the school district. And each of these entities, in order to set a rate above the certified tax rate, they have to go through a process called truth and taxation, which means they give notice to the public, and then they hold a public hearing where the public can come and express their feelings that way. Yeah. So what services does property tax pay for? Well, for the city, it pays for these services. Our wonderful police, fire, and EMS, parks and recreation and library, special events, and other things. They can help with cemetery or senior citizens, and admin and finance, legal. Things that won't pay for is utility services. Our utility fees would fund those services. All right. How much of the city's general fund revenue comes from property tax? About 10% is coming from property tax. We'll hit over $12 million in sales tax this fiscal year. Well, we didn't quite reach 4 million in property tax. So it gives you a little bit of idea of the scale. All right. One question that you might get is how, as my home value increases, do I pay more in property taxes? So what happens as as those property values go up, the certified tax rate actually goes down. So that's what the certified tax rate does, is it guarantees the same amount of revenue the next year, unless you have a rate that's above the certified tax rate. So a lot of people might think, oh, my property values went up 30%, my bills automatically go up 30%. But the way the certified tax rate is calculated, it automatically goes down. So I'll show that here in a second too. All right. Another question is, shouldn't new development reduce the need to hold or increase the property tax rate? So yes, that does lead to new property tax revenue, but it also leads to additional infrastructure and additional residents that our cops, need to service, and fire and EMS need to respond to, and more people in the Parks and Rec program, right? All right. This chart shows our rate compared to other cities over the last 20 years. One thing that I find interesting is right here in 2008, we had the recession, and values actually went down. And if you look at this point up, most of these cities, their rate actually went up. And that wasn't because they increased the rate, that was simply because the values went down, which forced the rate up. So in those cases, they wouldn't have to do a truth in taxation, because that rate increase was simply to generate the same amount of revenue as the year before. So if you look at this, you can see years where cities either held the rate, such as that year, or where they let the rate fall, or a couple years ago, we increased the rate to help fund Station 62, the new fire station, and a library hall that's being built next door. Yeah. All right. A few steps to calculate your property tax bill. First, the county assessor is that office assigns each property a value, and I think they review each property every 3 years in detail. The county auditor calculates that tax rate that is required to generate that same amount of revenue. This rate's called the certified tax rate, and it's generally lower because values generally go up. So, and if you want to set a rate above that, then you have to do that truth in taxation process. This rate is then communicated to each local government, which can then choose to adopt the certified rate or adopt another rate. So we just barely received that rate just last week. And if you want to do that, you got to do truth in taxation. So tonight you'll set the rate. In July, the county auditor will send out a valuation notice that shows the proposed rates, and it'll also show your value, and then that shows you the tax bill that you have, as long as those tax rates are approved during the truth in taxation process. So once the final tax rate is adopted and valuation appeals have been completed, the county treasurer sends a tax notice to each property owner, and then that bill is due at the end of November. So this is a snapshot of the average home value as set by the county assessor over the past 5 years, and you can see pretty stable growth up until this year. We had a larger increase in those values. And what that means is a larger decrease in the certified tax rate. So last year, we let the rate fall to 0.001129. This year, the certified tax rate came in at 0.00030879. So larger increase in values leads to a larger decrease in the rate. All right. So this is the certified tax rate that we have, 0.000. There should be another 0 there, 879. And you can choose to adopt that rate tonight, or you can choose to set another rate. And Seth is going to talk about that. But any questions before I pass it on to Seth? Hopefully that provided a little bit of context for you and the public.
Rate goes down, but tax does not, the money.
Right.
The rate goes down because the level stays the same.
Yeah, it keeps that dollar amount flat. And there's been talk in the legislature about whether or not that is capturing inflation, and it doesn't. So there's talk about whether or not you should have to do truth in taxation in order to just hold the rate, because the thought is that if values go up, inflation's going up, it costs more to provide that same level of service. Is that really a tax increase? So that's an interesting debate you can have with your neighbor, I guess.
Jordan, do other tax entities like Neville School District and the county, do they deal with this certified tax rate as well?
Yes, yep. And they have to go through that same process of truth in taxation. Mhm. All right.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
So I like to use the analogy as we discuss property taxes and the rates going down. If I were to go to the store today and buy a gallon of milk, well, let me go back in time. Let's say I was buying that gallon of milk 2 years ago and it was $2 a gallon. My property tax rate would be 7.35%, and so I'd pay whatever, that is 15 cents on the $2 gallon of milk. When you apply the philosophy of property taxes to sales tax, if the gallon of milk price goes from $2 to $3, then you would see the sales tax rate go down from 7.35 to some new rate that would throw off 15 cents. And that's what happens with property taxes. Well, with sales tax, that's not what happens. When it goes from $2 to $3, then we capture that additional dollar worth of sales tax. So instead of being 15 cents, now maybe it's 22 cents for that sales tax on that $3 gallon of milk. What helps a city like us is when the world inflates in costs, we have inflated costs too, right? What was Jared saying for the price of a traffic signal today? It was $250,000 yesterday, and now it's $4 billion today. I round, right? And so you have those inflated costs, and frankly, from a budgetary standpoint, truth in taxation does cause some challenges for us because it requires us to use growth to fund inflation. So if I use growth to fund inflation, what do I use to fund growth? Because the general fund has growth needs. When we get to certain levels in fire and EMS, we have to do what we're doing right now. We get to new levels in police requirements, we have to add new positions. So it does create some conflict there where inflation doesn't get captured in that rate. But that is a philosophical discussion for another day. So as Jordan pointed out, our property tax rate would go from 1129 to 879. So what I want to touch on right now is the item of rec center. So we've talked about that, and you as a council have talked about that for several months now. We've been studying it, and we're getting to some decision points now. And so we've done a lot of work, and I want to walk through a lot of this work with you and help give you the background that you need to help you set the rate, as Jordan mentioned. If we're going to potentially bond for a rec center sometime between now and August of 2023, it is our recommendation and proposal that we need to set a property tax rate today in this season of property taxes in 2022 so that we can capture what is potentially required or most of what is potentially required by that bond payment. The reason for that is if we bond in, let's say, April, we go through and we design a rec center, we're ready to build it, put it out to bid, and we start to construct it in April of 2023, and we go and get a bond for that. If we haven't secured all of the funding sources to make payments for that bond, and then we run into some challenges where we don't make those adjustments come August of 2023, we've got the bond payment, but we don't have the money to pay for it. So that's like you and I saying, we're going to get the job, let's go buy the car or the new house before we get the job, and then we don't get the job, and now how do we pay for that house or that car? That's kind of where the timing is for us in terms of property tax rates today. So we really have only one moment each year where we can raise property taxes, and that is in August. Today, you would say, we want to set the rate here or there, which would then put the wheels in motion to have public hearings notices for public hearings and a public hearing to be held in the first council meeting in August. So today you aren't actually saying you're raising the rate, but today you're saying we want to consider that. So do the noticing, and we want to discuss it at this rate in the Truth and Taxation hearing in August. Any questions on the timing?
Can I ask a question
Yeah,
before I
please.
forget?
Yeah.
'Cause I know I'll probably forget. So over the past 3 years, Jordan, you showed this in your graph. 3 years ago, we held the rate to fund the fire station, Station 62, and Library Hall.
Correct.
The following 2 years, we didn't hold the rate, we let the rate fall.
Only 1 year in between.
Only 1 year, okay, only 1 year. I guess I'm trying to understand how holding it 1 year was enough to fund what we've done to where now we can let it, or we let it fall again the next year. How is it that 1 year of holding it covers the expense that we
Yeah,
had?
so it's actually wasn't 1 year. So let's go back in time. We're gonna talk in 5 years. This is today.
Okay.
So 5 years ago, we held the rate for constructing and operating the fire station. And that was, we simply held the rate. It generated about $150,000 in new revenue. The next year, we held the rate for public safety, and we increased the rate, whatever the amount was, for Library Hall. And then this year, we held the rate again for public safety and increased the rate for Library Hall. Then this fourth year, last year, we did nothing. For public safety, by holding the rate those 3 years, we generated about $150,000 each year, cumulative. So 150, another 150, and another 150, or 450 over 3 years for public safety. In these 2 years, we generated $800,000 by the increase that we had for Library Hall in those 2 years. And I don't remember the exact dollar amounts each year, but I want to say it was $300,000 this year and $500,000 that year, but I could be wrong. I'd have to look at some notes to remember exactly what that was. And then the fourth year, again, we didn't hold the rate. If we would have held the rate last year, then our property tax revenue would have increased by, say, another $150,000.
Which wasn't necessary to fund the
Correct.
capital projects that we have.
Yeah, or the operations.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So with growth that has happened in this calendar year, so growth is really defined, or simply defined, as this farm field had a property tax value of $1,000 because it's in Greenbelt or whatever. And now it's turned into 100 homes. Let's take the property on 1400 East that many of us drive past, 1400 East and Canyon Road, that farm field that's been alfalfa forever, right? That was generating property taxes of $2,000. And now it's some 100 homes in the 25 acres that is there. So now all of those homes add up to $100,000 of tax revenue, totally making up these numbers, right? But the difference between that $1,000 and that $100,000, or $99,000, is new growth. That's what shows up in our additional revenue, right? And again, that's why I say sometimes you're robbing from growth by using growth to cover inflationary costs, because you assume there's some new costs associated for those 100 homes, right? But this year, growth in commercial development, in residential development, and industrial development has generated more of an increase. I want to say it was 210-ish, somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000. So historically, we're somewhere between $130,000 to $160,000 in new growth every year. This year, we had $200,000 in new growth. And in addition to that, as Jordan talked about, our inflationary values went up, and so the rate going from 11.29 down to 0.879 was the result. With that kind of stronger growth here, it makes it so this is a year where we can, as we make an adjustment to the property tax, there's more that lands on new growth than typical. And that maybe is a good thing, because we allow the new growth to buy in a little bit more than typical. I want to then now talk about possible funding sources for the rec center. And this is kind of fun. You know, we have this challenge, this opportunity of how do we pay for a bond? And so let's assume a couple of things. We're gonna historically we've made our bond payments very similar to how you probably would do your mortgage payment. And so the bond payment is equal the life of the bond. So you have a mortgage payment or you have a car payment, and you make it the same every month, the same dollar amount. So my mortgage is $1,000 a month, or my car payment is $500 a month, however you set it up. The nice thing about that is it's the same all the time. It's very predictable. You can budget for it. The downside is the first year typically is the hardest for me to afford, right? I buy my house, and this year my mortgage is $1,000, and next year I get a raise, and so it's a little bit easier to make my mortgage payment. The next year after that I get a raise, and it's easier to make my mortgage payment. By the time I finish paying off my house 30 years later, my mortgage payment, if it's still $1,000, because I didn't do any refinancing and all that stuff, it's now really easy for me to pay for it because I've got 30 years of increases, you know, new jobs or whatever came. So what we'd like to do, and what we propose with the structure of this bond payment, is let's not make it uniform. Let's allow for new growth to buy into it. So let's create a little bit of a stair step every couple of years so that we allow for new revenues coming from new growth to participate in the bond payment. So let's say the bond payment should be $3.2 million if it was flat for a rec center. Instead of saying year 1 it's 3.2 and then year 20 or 25 it's 3.2, let's have year 1 be 2.9. So the first year we don't have to pay, there's $500,000 difference or whatever the number was I just threw out, right? So you have these kind of stair steps, and in a couple of years you allow for growth to buy in. So let me show you in a table. Let's focus on this column right here. So you say let's do 2.9 million this year, 3,050,000 these 2 years, 3.2 million these 2 years, and so on until you get to about, say, year 10 or 11, where you then stabilize to a consistent payment. And that allows us to let growth buy in. Here's why I think this works really well. If we make the payment stable, then the impact on the resident is going to be, in property taxes, let's say it's $6. And when this new guy comes in, the impact on that new person next year is not $6, it's $5.90. But it was $6 to you. And then 3 years later and 4 years later, that number keeps going down. And by year 15, their buy-in is $4.50, and yours was $6. And your rate doesn't ever go down, and so that was the impact on you, was $6. But on that guy, it was $4.50. So this allows us to lower the impact initially to the current resident, and it allows for the other guy to buy in at relatively the same amount, thereby equalizing the playing field, at least for the first, in this model, the first 10 years. I want to jump now over to this column here. In 2015, when we discussed as a community the Life Center, all of the Life Center was funded by a proposed bond. And through a lot of the meetings that we held, comments were suggested, questions were asked, are there other sources? And we really didn't have other sources that we could turn to at that time. And so it was all put on the property tax. And if you recall some of the numbers, it was about $17, $16 and change, $16.80 or something like that. So let's round up, $17 on the average home. And the property tax increase was 166% on our share. Remember Jordan's pie, that was 166% on our share, not on the total amount. And we didn't have any other sources. But today we have, our sales tax base has significantly changed since 2015. If you can think back to what the city looked like in 2015, we did have Costco, but I don't know that we had Walmart quite yet. We might have just barely had Walmart. We didn't have any of the stores across the street from Walmart or up the way from Walmart, so like TJ Maxx and now the Buckle and Old Navy, and we didn't have any of the restaurants there. We didn't have any of the the Hobby Lobby or Lowe's, and all of those new stores have come in, and our sales tax revenue has changed significantly. So in this proposal, we show there is the ability to use some of that sales tax money. We typically use sales tax growth to fund inflationary costs and growth. So we don't want to target specifically too much on sales tax because that is always needed for growth. But we can certainly take year one, $250,000, and every couple of years add a few $1,000s, tens, $15,000 every couple of years. That's relatively easy to do in the budgetary sense. So growing over 10 years from $250,000 to $300,000 isn't hard. We could do that. This is maybe the biggest single thing we didn't have in 2015, that RAP tax. Our RAP tax revenues are solid and they continue to grow. As we've mapped out the use of RAP tax, you can see this is a big number, $1 million coming from the RAP tax. But one of the biggest concerns when we say we could use RAP tax for this is, well, what about all the other things? And as Dale has done his work in charting out possible uses of RAP tax, certainly we want to continue to fund and be able to add more funds for arts and other cultural endeavors that we have. This wouldn't take away from any of those, and we have budgeted, or at least long-range planned, that what we give today would grow. And so there's money for that growth. So we wouldn't take anything away from the arts possibilities. We would still be able to fund the playground replacement that you have talked about doing every year or every other year. We would still be able to fund playground or park enhancements and also some land purchases, just as we have planned. And so as we've charted this out, starting potentially in 2024 until 2029, I think, when this plan, it ends. We, of course, know it can continue, but when this plan ends, this doesn't stop us from doing any of the things that we have talked about doing. And we still can put $1 million this year, and for the first 2 years, $1,080,000, $1,170,000, and so on. Then this column, impact fees. We had a pool, and this would have a pool again. We can't use impact fees to replace the pool that went away. But we believe that there are enhancements, and we can at least put $200,000. We'll continue to study that, and maybe this number is more, maybe this number is $200,000. So to be conservative, we put it at the $200,000 range. Then there are other sources, and we've got some identified and others that we're still working on, but this is the low end of that, and so this could be a little bit higher. But this is the low end, again, being conservative. And those add up to whatever the sum of those is. Year one, it leaves about 1.3, almost $1.4 million that would need to be funded by property tax. So in 2015, this looked like 100% of it was funded from property tax. Now, less than 50% is, in this proposal, is funded by property tax. Before I move on, this is, for some of you, the first time you've seen these numbers and this concept. Any questions on this or any concerns? Or, yeah, Shane, please. Do you want me to zoom out on that?
Right. In 2015, what was the total bond payment that we projected?
I knew you'd ask.
Then why didn't you have the answer? You did.
Because it was irrelevant? No, I don't know. Let me see if I can find it. 39 million, 20 years, 4%. So Jordan will have that number for us in 2 seconds.
Right.
Not 4%, about 3%. 20-year bond. While he's calculating that, do you have any other questions that we can answer?
Can you go into other sources at all? Or are those just being explored at this point?
Yeah, the school district is one of those. The school district has a reason to participate in this, and as we've had some preliminary discussions with them, they participated in what they did with Springville, and they want to have an indoor facility and are willing to participate. To what level and what dollar amount, those negotiations haven't really started yet, but we've certainly had the beginnings of those conversations. They want to participate, they want to have access to it, and understand they need to pay for it. So that would be one of those. There could be donations and gifts from other sources. Chances are those would be, well, they could be one time, or they could be annuitized as well. So there could be some entities that say, hey, we want to participate in this, name it something, or have
Right.
some kind of a donation. So that would be what
Okay.
would fit into that category.
What was the dollar amount you said?
39 million. If I get there faster, Jordan, let's go 3%. 2.6. About 2.6. Is that what you get? 20 years, 3%? About 2.6, Shane.
Thank you.
So you're almost half of that.
Yeah, so half of,
Yeah. So, and I haven't even, I think, got to maybe the best part of these numbers, but I want to make sure that you have a chance to really digest this concept. Any concerns or questions about what we've kind of shown here?
I have a whole bunch of questions, but I need to see the next screen.
Okay, you want to skip to the end?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Okay, so if we estimate that we need 1.4 from property taxes, so again, I'm just going to focus now back on this right here. First year, we need 1.4. As we bump up and we need to take some money to get from 1.38 to 1.44, we need about $60,000. That can come from growth. As you go each year, remember, our property tax will grow from $130,000 to $200,000 a year. If 30,000 of that this year goes to this and 30,000 of that this year, that's how you can get to the 60. That's not a hard leap to make. So what we would recommend is that we let the rate fall from 1129 to 1111, and that's not written that way to be a catchy number. That actually gets us to a really even number of $1.2 million, which isn't 1.4. You know, that doesn't get us to the 1.382. But the reason that we would recommend today going to this 1.2 mark is there's still a lot of unknowns about what does that dollar amount need to be. We don't have the project designed. We don't have all of the costs identified. And so if we go all the way to the 1.4, maybe we go too far. And so getting to 1.2 gets us substantially there. And when we identify all the costs next year, if we're short, maybe we can get just that little bit left from growth. Maybe if we're really short, we need to hold the rate again. Maybe we can get it from impact fees, because instead of $200,000, we can use $300,000, right? There's still enough variables in that I think coming up short this year is wise. We still have the majority of that amount identified and collected if we get to the 1.2, but we don't have to take that whole amount. Second, it allows for us to get $280,000 from new growth instead of just 200. So it allows for new growth to really participate at a greater level, and only $150,000 would come from the existing residents. Now, what does that mean? Let me go to this bullet point. That means it's $4.90 per month to the average home. In 2015, that dollar amount was, remember, almost 17. Just a few weeks ago, we were in a meeting, and now maybe a month and a half ago, we were in a meeting with the Rec Center ad hoc committee that we had, and we were talking about this plan, and with the estimates that we had, we were thinking this dollar amount needed to be closer to, I want to say, $6.90, and so this is $2 less than even then. And the reason it's $2 less is because our growth was bigger than we had estimated, and we of course can't get into that data, so we're doing our best with historical data estimating for the future. But growth is allowing for that to be lower, which is good. It allows for us to do this without taxing the existing residents quite as much. So $4.90 per month on the average home, and now, as Jordan pointed out in his presentation, the average home has an assessed value by the county as $490. It's important when I say that. Some people will say, well, my home is worth $550. Well, you always want to go and see what the county assessed it for, because that's the dollar amount that matters. And it really doesn't matter for anything else, right? That's not how much it's sold for. They don't look at appraisals. They're always behind. So you want to look at the county's assessed value for your home. And the average home residential property in Spanish Fork this year is $460,000 and change. I've already blown the number
We
twice.
don't say that. The assessor says that.
Yeah, exactly. That's a county number. So $4.90 per month on the average home, about $59 per year. That is an actual rate decrease of 1.6%. Again, I'm taking it from 1129 to 1111. So the rate is going down, but it could have gone down further. So it's a truth in taxation rate increase. TNT stands for truth in taxation rate increase of 26.4%. Again, hearkening back to 2015, if you recall, again, that percent was 166%. And so the relative number there, 166 in 2015, 26% here. So it's a significantly different number there. Yeah, were you gonna ask a question, Brandon?
On the city's portion.
Always, yeah, we only talk about our portion, yep.
Only talking about Spanish Fork City.
If we need an additional $200,000 next year, that can, like I said, likely come from growth. If we have to hold the rate or not let the rate fall again, we could do that. But chances are we could also get it from other sources. We just have a few options still, and so I think it's good for us to not go the whole distance right now and let some of those other things play out. But secure, if we're going to bond between now and next August, secure the lion's share of what we need so that we're comfortable and confident that we can do that. I would hate for us to put ourselves in a position where we commit ourselves, but we don't have the funding for it. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So any questions on this that I can answer? You got your list ready? Go.
When does the city get their property taxes? One-time payment?
Yeah, the majority of it comes in November and December.
So when my taxes are due.
Mhm. That's when most people pay their taxes.
And so when do you, at that point, you know how much? The reason I'm asking this is because when you talk about new development and you talk about homes, to me, that's nothing. It's what's gonna happen down here on the west end. You got 10
With industry?
brand new buildings on farm ground, so we were getting $4.50, and now we're gonna get thousands.
Correct.
And that's gonna be huge.
Could be, yeah.
It's gotta be. I mean,
Yeah, it depends on what type of RDA development that happens there that may take some of that and put it towards the infrastructure of that.
well, right now, there's no RDAs, though.
Correct.
There.
But it has been discussed, yes.
Okay. So that could be potentially a huge increase.
Absolutely. Which again factors into you might say because of that next year, I don't need to do anything because that growth wasn't just $200,000, now it was $300,000. And so again, you can let growth pay for that potentially.
Okay. And this is what this is what we did with like you showed, with the library and with the fire station over a couple of years, and it lessened the impact. But will you still be able to commit? Because I think we committed to 8. Was that what we said was with the committee for the rec center?
Yeah.
That we'll be able to, because if you do 490 and 490,
And what I'm saying right now is it's very likely that all we need is 490.
is 190 is
Is
the
one
1
time.
year.
Yeah, because if we were to go up to $8, then you would be bringing in $2 million, and we don't need that. And so with growth that has happened in the property taxes, that we don't need to get that high, which I think is good news. I'm actually really excited about what I'm presenting because just a month and a half ago, we talked about it at being $7 a month on the average home. And now I've with the numbers and work that Jordan has done on this, I'm confident that it's Not even going to be close to that.
Okay. And that's a good thing. So if we see this increase, like, and I mentioned this once before, back when you first started talking about it, because you've talked about it, because you said, I'm going to take a piece of ground that's worth $1, and now it's going to be worth $1 billion, and I'm going to get the property tax off that.
Yeah, that growth.
To the city for that growth. And I know we had a lot of COVID money. Maybe you're just going to give that all to Chief Hales. I don't know.
Don't give him any of those ideas. Come on.
But is some of that, I know you put some of that in that capital fund, is some of that can be used? Or is this not something we can use some of that for? Because I know we're expecting another payment.
Yeah, you could use some of those for a project like this. And that would be probably more on lowering the bond amount. So if the bond amount was $55 million, then maybe it's $53 million. And that would affect your payment in the end. But it wouldn't go towards monthly payments, I don't think.
Okay. And I guess the reason I'm asking, I mean, obviously, your page back, we're in a critical time right now. Things are not good. And for us to propose a increase, and I know we've talked about this rec center. We're going to do this rec center. Does it have to be 25 years?
Great question. So the rec center bond in 2015, that proposal was 20 years, and this is 25. It can be 30. It can be any number we choose.
And I'd rather it be less.
Oh,
if
then,
it's possible.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't want to go longer. You know, I still have strong feelings about at the end of that 25 years, whatever we choose that to be. I want that. I feel like I want that to go away because
For sure.
I'm fighting. We're fighting this right now, and
Right.
it's going to be a fight. And in 20 years, I won't be here, and that council can fight for whatever. I don't.
Yeah, you can make a position statement, but that's really the best I think that this council can do in terms
Not
of
tie their
obligating.
hands, but yeah.
But that certainly is something that you could signal your desire that happen.
As I've drove around the town and looked at, and I could name probably 15 properties right now that I think are gonna be a huge increase, and I just kept thinking that's to benefit us doing that rec center.
Sure, yeah.
Huge, because obviously they're all brand new. They're just starting, and probably by tax time, we'll see those property taxes because they're opening up businesses and
Well,
stuff like
and
that.
so this is based on assessed value January of 22.
Of the first of the year.
So the assessed value moment in time has already happened. So if anything has happened and developed in March,
That'll be
April, May,
23s.
we'll see that in the assessed value of,
And I guess that was my question. So when will we see?
Yeah.
January's when we see that.
and we won't
That's
know
when they
about
do
it.
my home too, right?
We won't know about it until June.
Okay.
But in June, we're kind of looking back and saying, in January, these are the values.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a little bit delayed.
Okay. So this is better.
Yeah, and I want to maybe reiterate, whenever I've talked about this number with you or with that rec committee, I've always been targeting something in the range of 6 to 8. And today I'm saying 490. And depending on what happens, we might need to hold the rate next year, and that might be another 50 cents. But it wouldn't be on the order of dollars such that I don't think we'll get to the 6 to 8 range.
Good.
Yeah.
And
This
the
is better.
sales tax is a monthly thing also, correct?
We received.
A monthly payment on that?
Yeah.
Because
It's 2 months behind, but we received that.
Okay, that's
monthly.
right. It's 2 months behind, that's right. Because we've had numerous stores open up.
Correct. Yeah.
And as you said, there are $5 hamburgers now $10.
Right.
We get an increase in sales tax on
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Seth.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Seth, I just want to thank you for going through all this, because for the last year or so, we've talked about the $8. So when you and I talked the other day and you said 490, that was thrilling. I love that number. And when we also talked, you said, some people might be thinking, why do it this year? Why not wait? But I think the big thing is this could quite possibly get us a rec center a season earlier, meaning families, kids could enjoy the rec center for a full summer. So that would be one of our reasons for pulling the
Yeah.
trigger this year rather than waiting as well.
Yeah, every day that goes by, and if we give Dale any time, he will come up and tell you that it's one more year. It's one more year where the kids don't have a pool, and so
I'm pretty sure 2023, all costs are gonna drop 50%.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And in my notes, I didn't say this, but if we went too far, because construction prices do go down, let's say there's some stars align and the world changes, then next year, the truth in taxation process says that the rate, should fall to here. If property values go up, the rate should go down to here. We can also go lower, and we don't have to hold a truth in taxation hearing for that. You can always set the rate lower, and you can say, well, last year we shot for 1.2, and we targeted this rate. We went too high. We can lower it. I don't think that will be the case because that typically isn't how construction costs are, but that's always an option, and I think we've done that with some of our other rate increases where we said, this is the amount we need, this is what we think it should be, and then when the actual numbers come out, it's better, and so we've lowered it. And if that were the case, then I would be in front of you again next budget year saying, we got too much, we need to lower the rate. Again, I think that's not likely, but it's certainly a possible option that could happen.
Seth, can you address and talk about some of the safeguards that you've planned for or put in place to where if sales tax and if RAP tax were to slow down or maybe not quite be what we expect, what you would do in that case?
Yeah, so first of all, as we watch the economy on a monthly basis, we're tracking the economy, and so we'll get another sales tax allotment for the month of April. And so we're 2 months behind, so we can see the trends, 2 months behind, but we get a sense. We're still months away from having any bond amount. We still have to fully design it and everything. And so we've got time to see what happens with the economy. If we decide this is a bad time, we can pause it. Second of all, we have a number of safeguards in our budget where we're targeting to save the top or the last 15% of our sales tax, what we would then kind of refer to it as one-time money, knowing that if we had a recession, that could go away. So rather than having to cut functions, positions, et cetera, we would just not save that amount. That we're putting that into the savings account for projects, and so we just wouldn't do that. So we have a few safeguards that we put into place. When we see the economy change, we don't have to freeze everything. We can adjust to those challenges. If it's a long-term one, like we saw in 08, 09, and 10, then we would make other changes too, but we could react. We certainly have a 6 month to a 1 year ability to really adjust. So.
Two things that come to mind when I think about this in the presentation and the way it's come to be through the good work of the committee that, yeah, Dale, you coming up here? That the rec committee, the volunteers have went over things and concepts and numbers and given of their time away from their families and stuff to study this. But the 2 points that I come back to on now where we're at that make me excited is Councilwoman Beck touching on the one thing, time with families and kids. And we attribute a value to money all the time because that's a currency and we give something for it and that's what it is. But time is a currency as well. And so to be able to get on something now where we don't currently have a pool in our city, there is a value to that. And so running calculations of the time value of money and what that is there ever really any perfect time to do this and try to get a proposed tax rate? I don't know. Probably not ever a perfect time, but but there, you know, as time goes by, the kids and the families get older, and they don't, you know, go to the rec center anymore. So, number one, the time value of money is what sticks out to me. Number two is, I think we're all, ever since we've been elected, if you were to ask our constituents about their number one issue that they like to talk to us about, and we all moan about a little bit collectively, is growth, right? Growth is something that sometimes it's painful, and sometimes it's painful on our roads, and sometimes it's painful on our neighborhoods and everything else. The smart way of putting this heavy on the growth side of new people, new businesses moving into our community are gonna be paying their fair share, rather than this being on the residents that have lived here 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is. This is a smart way to capture. There's nothing more frustrating to our citizens than growth and then them paying for growth. And so this is helping growth pay for itself and pay for the amenity that they will enjoy, that we'll all enjoy. But I think it's a smart way to do it and tier it like this, so we do capture that growth that's happening. And regardless of the economy, there's a consensus that here in this area, because this is the place that has available ground to still grow, you're gonna grow. Now, you might not grow at the same clip every year. We've had a pretty good few years here of extreme growth, but there will be growth, and this helps that growth pay for it. So I like that aspect too. Sorry, Dale.
It's okay, there's nothing left to be said now. Thanks, Mayor. No, this is the first time I've seen these numbers. So I, like Councilwoman Becker, going, that's really nice. And I got a whole bunch of focus group members that are probably sitting at home going, I really like that. Because those aren't the numbers that we were throwing out before. So it's really a blessing in disguise for us. I hate to say this, but having to wait, because we've got all these other sources of funding that are going to help relieve the tax burden to our citizens, as well as the growth. But yeah, we hear it all the time, especially now. We've got parents and families who are struggling to find places for swim lessons because there just isn't enough around, especially without us having any pool. But we've been talking about this for many years, and it would be nice if we could be fortunate like Provo, and they built when the economy was down and costs were low. But there's always a chance that could happen for us as well. And I think the planning and the foresight that goes into this could really benefit us. I am anxious, yes, because I hear about it daily, and I hear about how badly this is needed. And I know we're already going to have citizens without a pool for 3 years. Even if we keep moving on this quickly, it's still gonna take a couple years to build the facility once we get all the plans designed. So we're excited about it, and we're confident that this facility, and by the way, we're also including a new senior center as part of this facility. And many of the seniors are excited about that. It's an old building they're in down there, and they need some new amenities, and they're excited about having this as well. So we're anxious to keep going. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we have some concepts we're excited about. This committee has done a lot of work and given us a lot of really good ideas to make this Spanish Forks Rec Center. And we're pretty confident that it's. I told Seth, I don't think we can build this big enough because of the way we're growing. I mean, you can't afford to build it big enough, but we're growing so fast that we may have to do some other things later. But right now, we think we've got it designed for the right size for our community, because it will serve surrounding communities as well. But we're excited about it and anxious, like I said, to to get going. It'll certainly add to the quality of life in our community. So, you guys have any questions for me? Thanks.
Thank you, Dale.
So with, tonight on the agenda, you have two resolutions approving the fiscal year 2023 certified tax rate. If you want to let the tax rate fall, then in your agenda packet, the first one that says 2023 certified tax rate, that would be the resolution that we would adopt. If you want to adjust it and choose some other rate, then the one that says, that is called proposed tax rate, that is the one that we should approve, and we would need to fill in the blanks and choose the rate. Again, from our presentation, what we've suggested in terms of this is that the rate be, yes, Shane?
Seth, can you just clarify something for me real quick? Back on the slide, go forward one, if you don't mind. So if we just picked the certified tax rate, the rate would decrease further than 1.6. But my bill would not change.
Correct. Yeah.
I would be paying exactly the same. So when we say would have gone down further, it doesn't mean I save any money. My percentage would be different.
Based on last year's taxes to this year's taxes, the city's bill would not go down. That is correct. Only the rate would go down. Yeah, thank you.
I asked that just because I want to make sure that there's a lot of math in this conversation, right? There's a lot of if this, then that. It's a little bit complicated. I want to make sure we're very transparent in that we're not saying that you would have saved money this year, but you're going to pay $4.90 more. You wouldn't have saved any money.
Yeah.
But you're going to pay, you could potentially pay $4.90.
Correct.
Okay.
Again, as you set the rate tonight, you are not actually setting the rate. You're setting
Public hearings.
You're setting the table for the opportunity of that discussion and potential rate change come August. And so, and as Jordan and I have talked through this, we believe that you can't go higher than what you set today. So if you're going to set the rate, but you want to potentially go up, you can. So if you say 11.11, but then come August you say, no, actually I want to go 11.29.
Because of public notice,
You
right?
can't. You whatever the number is here, you can't go above that, is how we understand it.
So how do we?
But you can go less. Sorry.
Okay, I was just gonna say, how do we word it then when, in the motion? Just with that rate? Okay.
Yeah, I move to approve fiscal year 2023 certified tax rate, or proposed tax rate at 11.11 or whatever. Yeah, not to exceed 11.11, 0011. Any questions on anything else here? Okay.
Anything else for Seth? Jordan? Okay.
I'll go ahead and move to approve the fiscal year 2023 certified proposed tax rate of 11.11, or not to exceed 11.11.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck on item E and seconded by Councilman Euler. This is a roll call vote. We'll start with Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilman Argyle.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Gordon.
Yes.
That passes. We are on item F that has to do with item E, right? Because this budget's just changing with that.
So we can't formally adopt 2023's budget until we adopt a tax rate, and you can't adopt the tax rate till after the truth and taxation process. So what we'll do is we'll operate off of a tentative budget until August. So you would be making a motion to approve? I don't know.
Accept the 23
Accept.
tentative budget budget.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Which is you have both options in the packet.
Yeah, because we weren't sure which tax rate you would select there.
So you call out that tax rate again in this motion?
No,
or-
you would just say that
okay.
you'd operate off of the tentative budget.
Tentative 2023 budget, okay.
The resolution covers both possibilities. Because you adopted a proposed tax rate, this will become a tentative budget.
Gotcha.
And we presented that budget back in April and then had a public hearing on it 2 weeks ago. So it's something that's, we've already done the due diligence on those steps.
Okay. Okay, perfect. I would entertain a motion on item F.
I move to accept fiscal year 2023 tentative operating budget.
Motion made by Councilman Euler,
Second.
seconded by Councilwoman Beck. This is a roll call vote too. Councilman Marshall,
Yes.
Councilman Euler,
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Councilman Argyle.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. On to item G, resolution finding benefit to the North Industrial Park RDA on 2700 North Main Street and airport access. Vaughn
This is
Pickett.
a request from the Public Works Department. There are several improvements that need to be done on 2700 North, the intersection of 2700 North and Main Street. We heard a little bit about that project tonight from our UDOT friends, and also some access roads to the north side of the airport. And the thought is that those improvements will benefit the North Industrial redevelopment project area, which is on the east side of Main Street. The state law allows you to use project area funds for projects that are outside of that project area if you find that they benefit the project area. And so both the city council and the redevelopment agency board will need to adopt a resolution making that finding of benefit, that those improvements, infrastructure, road improvements will benefit the North Industrial redevelopment project area.
Will you define that area, that,
Yes. Okay, let's zoom in to 2700 North. Can you turn on the RDA layer? And it could show exactly where it is. It's under planning, yeah. Yes. So it's this kind of salmon colored. Am I doing this right?
I can note it with the mouse. This area right here.
It's all that salmon colored area, North Industrial RDA. So along 2700, that Main Street intersection, and then a little bit of 2700 west of Main Street, and a couple roads to provide better access to the north side of the airport. Sorry, I don't have any drawings of that.
so it's not gonna include West Rock or whatever it is? No?
This
Them, yeah.
doesn't include.
They're not in the project area.
This RDA was created some 20, 25 years ago.
Oh, this is an existing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I thought you
All
was. I'm sorry.
he's saying that because this touches the border of it here, you can make the motion to say, hey, this road, it's, conducive to this redevelopment area, and now bringing it here because it touches it, we can use RDA funds to be in this area for the airport.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking it was a new one that you.
The thought is it will stimulate growth and development in the project area and at the airport.
Okay, thank you, Vaughn. Any other questions for Vaughn on this? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve resolution finding benefit to the North Industrial Park, RDA, Main Street, 2700 North, and airport access. Is that all we need? Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Argyle, seconded by Councilman Gordon. This is a roll call vote. Councilwoman Beck,
Yes.
Councilman Gordon,
Yes.
Councilman Argyle,
Yes.
Councilman Marshall,
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Threw you a curveball there, Councilman Euler, or Marshall.
All right, I almost said yes for Statesby, that's okay.
Okay, perfect.
I move we adjourn to RDA.
Second?
Motion to go into RDA and by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilwoman Beck. All in favor, say aye. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
We are in RDA.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Motion made by Chairman Board Member Gordon, seconded by Board Member Argyle to approve the consent items. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Consent items are approved. RDA new business, approving the fiscal year 2023 budget. Any questions about this, or this just relates to that new area?
No, this is be the budget for the whole.
Okay, all right.
So, yeah, this was presented in the tentative budget presentations in May, part of public hearings, last council meeting. No changes or adjustments to this from the May tentative
Okay.
budget. And this can be fully approved. Yeah,
And the tax rate we talked about doesn't apply.
yeah, that's totally separate. So this one just would be approved.
Perfect. If there's no other questions on this, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve RDA fiscal year 2023 budget.
Second?
Motion made by Board Member Argyle, seconded by Board Member Beck, to approve the fiscal year 2023 RDA budget. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Marshall?
Just a clarification. The agenda item says this is for information. Are we really approving anything?
I didn't hear, I'm sorry.
Saying that on the agenda under type, it's
No, this
indicated that
is-
this is information.
Yeah, this is to be approved.
All right, so this is an action?
Yeah.
It
Okay,
is.
yes.
Okay. Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Board Member Euler?
Yes.
Board Member Beck?
Yes.
Board Member Gordon?
Yes.
Board Member Argyle?
Yes.
The RDA budgets fiscal year 2023 is approved. Item B, RDA resolution finding benefit to the North Industrial Park Development Agency. This is what Vaughn just mentioned to us, same thing, but now we're in RDA approving it. Okay, I'd entertain a motion if there's no questions on this.
I move to approve RDA resolution finding benefit to the North Industrial Park Redevelopment Agency.
Second.
Motion made by Board Member Beck, seconded by Board Member Euler. This is a roll call vote. Board Member Marshall?
Yes.
Board Member Argyle?
Yes.
Board Member Euler?
Yes.
Board Member Beck?
Yes.
Board Member Gordon?
Yes.
That passes.
I move we adjourn to LBA.
Second.
Motion by Board Member Gordon, seconded by Board Member Argyle to go into LBA. All in favor, all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
We're in LBA.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Motion made by Board Member Gordon, seconded by Board Member Argyle to approve the consent items. All in favor, say yes.
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 16A, LBA fiscal year 2023 budget.
Same as the RDA budget. No changes. This budget can be approved.
Motion to approve LBA fiscal year 2023 budget.
Second?
Motion made by Board Member Argyle, seconded by Board Member Beck. This is a roll call vote. Board Member Marshall?
Yes.
Board Member Euler?
Yes.
Board Member Beck?
Yes.
Board Member Gordon?
Yes.
Board Member Argyle?
Yes.
Okay, that budget, it's approved.
We reconvene back to city council.
Second.
Motion made by Board Member Gordon, seconded by Board Member Euler to go back into city council. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
We're back in city council.
This is next item is a duplication of what UDOT presented, so that we don't need to redo that.
Okay, we already discussed it.
Then I move we go into closed session for land transaction and reasonably imminent litigation.
Second?
Motion made by Councilman Gordon, seconded by Councilwoman Beck to go into closed session. This is a roll call vote. Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Gordon?
Yes.
Councilman Argyle?
Yes.
Councilman Euler?
Yes.
We're in closed session. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks, Dan, for sticking around.